Al diputado Sergio Gutiérrez Luna. Por favor, diputado.
Sergio Gutiérrez. Good afternoon to everyone. In first instance, I want to welcome you to the Chamber of Deputies. The Chamber of Deputies is the house of the people, where every idea, every kind of thinking, every proposal are worthy of being analyzed here and shared, debated and discussed. And let this be with a lot of respect. 2 months ago, we had the first audience surrounding the unidentified anomalous phenomenon. My friend Jaime Maussan, who has been a very recognized and respected journalist with a lot of years of experience in this topic, that has debated very thoroughly this topic. He has talked with me some months ago, and he told me, Sergio, here in Mexico, we lack more to talk about this topic, and with another perspective, that this legislative work that has already happened in other countries, and we can have the vanguard of this topic. In that occasion, we had invited specialists from all parts of the world. They came, journalists, scientists, experts that analyzed topics about the human genome. Japan congressmen and French congressmen also came. We've encountered negative opinions and opinions in favor. This is democracy. This is like the basic principle of democracy, to be able to discuss ideas so that we can all say what we think, and that from that exposure of ideas there are people that agree or disagree from this opinion. That is what happened here in the Deputies Chamber. We feel really happy to have been able to make that step, because apart from the fact that it was something historical and something unique, we can take experience from that people with a lot of seriousness went to share their respective research that they have done through their lives. And something that is very important, that was very important through the whole public media, was the presence of two, let's say, mummies, it's desiccated bodies, of non-identified objects here in the Deputies' Chamber. From unidentified objects that in any moment we're going to hear explications from people who have studied them, their origins, genetic compositions, and other data that come, or that their origins come from Peru. Today, we are accompanied by Peruvian deputies. Please be welcome. Specialists about the topic. They are going to talk to us about this and are going to talk about this thoroughly. Apart from that, this is not just in the exposition or in the comments. The replicas and discussion about all of this, we have taken this to the law. And right now we are taking this to an initiative to form the law of transparency, where we can establish that in difference from other countries, in Mexico, any information that regards all of these anomalous objects that is in power of the state, for that information to be public and not hidden. Jaime Maussan made an investigation surrounding transparency through the channels and procedures that the INAI has, and through that juridic exercise, they tell about an entity of the Mexican state, the CNM, where the traffic controllers, aerial traffic controllers were. They published visualizations they had of anomalous flying objects. And I want to refer now that I need to highlight that it's necessary to reform the law, and that any public video or any kind of knowledge of this possible phenomena of unidentified anomalous objects. We're going to present them, and we're going to give opportunity to all of this. In the Chamber of Deputies, there's a lot of relevant topics, and we're going to discuss everything. Today, we're discussing here nothing more and nothing else than budget. We're here in this building discussing things that are very relevant, and people that think this is really relevant and talk with a lot of respect. We'll receive the personalities that accompany us today so that they can tell us their personal experiences, their life experiences, scientific data about this topic. So please be welcome again.
Thanks a lot, Deputy Sergio Gutiérrez Luna. Now we will have the reporter, José Jaime Maussan, Director of Tercer Milenio. Please have a word, Director. Thank you a lot. Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. To our friends from Acapulco, all our solidarity. We know that you will pull through this challenge that life has put in front of you. It's an honor to be here today in this honorable Chamber of Deputies to present 3 topics of great relevance to Mexico, to Peru, and to America Latina, and the rest of the world. First, I want to highlight the proposal of the law of the unidentified aerial phenomena that is going to be presented in the next few days. Number two, I want to be able to emphasize that any of the information from this that the state may have on this phenomena, the authorities will be obligated to inform all the people about this kind of information they may have. And for this, the one responsible for this is Deputy Sergio Luna. There is no state in this world, in this planet, that guarantees the absolute transparency about these unidentified aerial phenomena in their sky, and that needs to be truthfully considered. That needs to be considered that Mexico is now on the vanguard, is now at the first place in this. However, we hope that this may be a shining example for the rest of the places in the world. In the third place, I want to highlight the studies about the studies of these tridactyl beings found in Peru, as well as the exposition of 2 entirely new species. This is not just one species. These are 3, and furthermore, these are not the only ones. There's more. This discovery is so much bigger than we all thought. All of this is only possible thanks to the people who were committed to the truth, like the Deputy Sergio Gutiérrez Luna, because thanks to him, to his conviction and his courage, we were able to achieve such extraordinary advancement that will situate Mexico as one of the first and foremost countries in this new reality. Mexico will be one of the first to accept this unidentified anomalous phenomena as one in the laws. And that's why Mexico will help the world to accept what's going on, the reality of what's going on in our case. And we also need to recognize the help from Gaia.com. Without Gaia, we wouldn't have been able to realize this extraordinary investigation. Their support was a determinant factor to realize this work. I'm sorry. Also to obtain this scientific research, and I also want to deeply thank the ICA University at Peru, and especially their very brave rector, Legua. He has faced enormous pressure from the government, from the scientific community, and yet he has pulled through to advance through any challenges, and he deserves all of our gratefulness. He also deserves Thierry Gamin, who is the director from the institute in Cari, who started the excavations about this discovery, which was realized among the Palpa and Nazca communities in Peru. Today we know that these desiccated bodies with humanoid characteristics is so much bigger than we thought. These discoveries challenge us to rethink our place in the universe and even our own roots as human beings. The implications of these discoveries are deep, and they invite us to reflect about our responsibility in this earth. Sorry. This is a very important and very exciting moment we have in our hands. Physical proof that may change our entire perception of the world. The 21 September of 1889, he said President Ronald Reagan said on the ONU, perhaps we need a threat from another world, and then maybe the conflict among all of the conflicts among all the nations will disappear. I don't think we need a threat. We just need to know that we are a one race without a distinction between race or color. Will help us to stop killing each other, like in Russia or the Middle East. This discovery may push us to finally understand. We are faced with a deep change. I am inviting the scientific community so that instead of attacking us, that they may investigate seriously. We need to leave behind the prejudice, the unfounded fear, and to hug this opportunity to embrace that we may face and we may grow as a society. Some may resist to accept the evidences and testimonies that demonstrate that times are changing. However, not even the detractors or the investigators are bigger than the truth. In conclusion, today we are facing a crucial moment in humanity, the presentation of desiccated beings with humanoid characteristics that defy us to expand our horizons. And we once again thank the ICA University and the Mexican authorities for their bravery and their leadership in this process. I want to say once again that the discovery in Peru is so much bigger than we thought. In the coming weeks, they will try to stop the information that here is being presented. They will try to discredit it. They will try to discredit the evidences. They will try to any kind of effort from our position will have to be supported through scientific means, like here we're presenting, which is why this public audience Congress, which is how we find that the bodies found in the Lima airport are being destroyed, which is why we need to find. And furthermore, eventually we'll have more information about this very sad chapter. It is important that we may all unite, investigators and institutions, so that we may all talk about transparency.
Sí, don Jaime, muchas gracias.
Yes,
Conforme
Jaime,
lo
thank
acordado,
you
usted
very much.
llevará
As accorded,
el
you will
seguimiento del
take the
programa,
lead
si
of
es
the
tan amable.
program, if you're as kind.
Invitamos al presidio
We invite to the Presidium to José Ángel Guevara,
controlador aéreo,
aerial controller,
quien va a dar
who
testimonio
will give
de la
testimony
intensa
about
actividad
the intense
que está
activity that
ocurriendo
has
en
been
estos
occurring in this
momentos
moment
en los cielos de México.
in the skies of
Adelante,
Mexico.
José Ángel, por favor.
Go ahead, José Ángel, please.
Muchas gracias.
Thank you very much.
Buenas tardes a todos.
Good afternoon to everyone. Deputy Sergio Gutiérrez Luna.
Les agradecemos a ustedes,
I want to
demás
thank
diputados,
you
la gentileza
and
de
to everyone
recibirnos
else
a esta
the
segunda
kindness
audiencia
to
pública
receive us in this second
para la
public audience
regulación de los
for the
fenómenos
regulation
aéreos
of the
anómalos no identificados,
unidentified
FANI,
anomalous
Muchas
phenomena.
gracias por estar aquí con nosotros,
Thank you
señoras y
very much
señores.
for being
Es para
here,
nosotros un
ladies and
gran gusto
gentlemen. It's
estar en
for
esta
us a
representación
great
parlamentaria.
privilege to
Y
be
para mí, en lo
here,
personal, como
and
mexicano,
personally,
todo
as a
un honor.
Mexican, a whole honor.
Estoy aquí ante ustedes
I am
como
here
controlador
before
del
you
tráfico
as
aéreo
an
de
aerial
México
controller of
para
Mexico
compartirles
to share with you
testimonialmente algunos de los
testimonially
datos,
some of the
así
data,
como soporte
as well as
documentado
some
de
documented
avistamientos y
support
reportes de
of
fenómenos anómalos
sightings and
no
reports
identificados.
of unidentified anomalous
Hoy en
objects.
día, está
Today,
sucediendo un fenómeno inusual en los cielos de nuestro
an
país.
unusual
Fenómeno
phenomena
por
has been
particular,
happening in
un
our
servidor
country.
que se
Phenomena
desempeña como
that
controlador de tráfico aéreo en la República Mexicana.
I,
En la
as a
categoría de
aerial
radar
controller
en
in
ruta,
the category
he
of
podido atestiguar
en
a
route
través de
radar,
los numerosos
I have been able
reportes de
to
avistamientos
give testimony,
FANI,
a lot of the
fenómeno aéreo no
testimonies
identificado, fenómeno
of
anómalo no
these
identificado, por parte de
anomalous,
gremios que
unidentified
compartan-
anomalous
que confir-
objects.
que, perdón, que conforman los
And
compañeros
to say that
pilotos aviadores que vuelan
the pilots
diariamente
that fly
por el
daily
espacio aéreo
through
nacional,
the aerial national space,
a quienes considero y puedo
to
constatar
whom
de ser
I can
altamente
say
profesionales,
that they are
así
highly
como de
professional
poseer una
and
respetable
that they have a
credibilidad,
respectable
acompañada de una
credibility
indiscutible seriedad.
and that they have a great seriousness. Maybe
Reportes han
well,
consistido
such
en la
reports
observación visual
have
frecuente de
consisted of
fenómenos
the frequent
luminosos
visual
o
observation
incandescentes
of luminous
durante
objects
los vuelos que se realizan en
during the
periodos
flights
nocturnos.
that happen during
A veces
the
descritos como bolas
during
de fuego.
the night time,
ocasiones
sometimes described
reportados en
as balls of
flotillas de
fire,
numerosos elementos
and
luminosos
that sometimes
que llenan
present
el
themselves
firmamento,
in
mostrándose a la vista de
numerous
las tripulaciones
numbers,
en cabina de
and
aviones
that
en ruta,
there's
o
also
sea, en vuelo
been
recto y nivelado.
sightings inside
Dichos
of the cabins
avistamientos
of the airplanes.
Han descrito los
Said
fenómenos en
sightings,
cuestión como luces con
they
brillos y
have
destellos
been
atípicos
described,
de lo
these
que vendría
phenomena,
siendo un avión o una
as
aeronave comercial,
luminal
además de
or
efectuar maniobras que
lights
sobrepasan
that
las
have
capacidades de
been
movimiento
overflying the
de
skies
cualquier aeronave
that do
conocida por
not
aeronáutica,
follow
así
the
como los que desafían
patterns
las leyes de la
of
aerodinámica de los aviones.
any aircraft that we know and that
En lo que
defy
un
any
servidor
kind of
concierne,
aeronautical laws.
Cuando se ve informado del
To me,
suceso,
when I was
se me
informed
solicitó
of
información
this
respecto
phenomena
de
and I
la-
was
o las
solicited
luces
some
observadas,
information
así
about the
como
lights that
basado en
were
la
observed
posición
and
y dirección
in
proporcionada
base
por los
of
pilotos en
the
referencia al
position
fenómeno
that
observado,
were of the pilots that
este
were
o estas
in,
no
that
aparecen
gave
en la
testimony to
pantalla
this.
del radar
This phenomena
como
did not
tráfico
appear in
conocido
the
o
screen of the
identificado,
radar as
lo cual
identified
desconcierta y
traffic,
asombra
which
tanto
is very
a los
concerning
pilotos
and it
como a los
surprises
controladores aéreos.
both the pilots and the
Hecho
aerial
que
controllers.
aumenta aún más la
This
interrogante
fact
de este
really makes
extraordinario fenómeno.
these extraordinary
Cabe
phenomena
mencionar que este tipo de
very
acontecimientos no son
important.
exclusivos de la actualidad.
This phenomena is really
Durante
not
los
exclusive from
28 años que llevo
nowadays.
ejerciendo mi labor
Since
aeronáutica,
20 years ago that I've
recuerdo
been
vagamente
working in
haber
this
recibido
area, I have
uno
been
o
receiving
tal dos
one or maybe
reportes
two
similares
similar
a los
reports
anteriores durante los inicios de mi
of
carrera.
those that I have
Pero sin
been
lugar a
receiving
dudas,
since the
este
beginning of my
2023
career. But
Ha sido
definitely
un
this
año con un
2010
elevado número de
2023,
avistamientos.
there has been an unusual high
Visto lo
amount
anterior,
of
a
sightings.
continuación les mostraré
I will
evidencia
show
de lo
you
antes descrito
the
en los
evidence
audios.
of
Por
what
favor.
has been described in some audios, please.
A las
Traffic
5 miles from 320. Do you refer to that? I have the traffic at sea, but I can't. But it's like it's making figures. I don't know. I don't know if they're airplanes, but we're fighting at the same. Well, I don't have any notification of these objects, Captain. And how many objects do they look? I think there are like around 8, and they are like turning on and off. I had Tower 1, Curiosity. Do you by any chance have an object to our side? It's difficult to calculate, but I think it's around Fijo Maxa. I would have Maxa is at your left at around 14 miles. I don't have traffic reported, sir. I don't observe any of that in the area. The most certain traffic is you could say it's close to you is like 123 miles from 3.0. How are you? Good night. And 1.108 and 308. Thanks, pilot. How's your contacts? 380. Does it look like Starlink? I don't think so, gentlemen. I'm sorry. It looks bigger than Hermosillo. Static. It was static. The lights. Yeah, you can see more than 100 lights. There were so many lights. Yeah, they were like kilometric. The source of the light. Yeah. Here we're still with Jesus with Christ in our mouths. Thanks.
These evidences, and I hope that with this brief testimony that I have presented to you, this chamber, that this information is useful to achieve the goals that this audience is looking for, and that the law and the additions to the protection of various Mexican space laws about the unidentified anomalous phenomena. I really thank your attention. I am to your orders, and thank you very much.
Well, any question? One question, Angel. Do you mean to say by what you are telling us that every time there's even more activity in Mexican skies?
Yes, Jaime. As I said, in some occasion I had one or two a long time ago, but this year, 2023 in particular, the report of sightings have exploded exponentially.
To what do you attribute this?
Well, you're telling me unidentified anomalous objects. In the radars of our country, we only see the traffic that is supposed to be seen through a transponder equipment. We can't really see flocks of birds or anything like that. If something appears that is not registered, we don't really know with certainty what it is. But pilots describe it like elements or objects that make extraordinary things that defy any kind of gravity or aerodynamical or physical law.
Do you have a register, any kind of control about the reportings of this?
No. I knew a supervisor in turn that was like just in comment. We're just seeing each other. It was a very surprising and uncertain thing to witness. But really, there's no kind of research or any kind of register of innumerable reports that not only I, but a lot of my comrades have had.
Would it be convenient to install any kind of official research?
Yes, it would be recommendable that when this kind of stuff happened, for it to be documented and to have the recordings and have them classified to the site so that anyone can have access to them. We have some videos, I don't know if they can be run, just 3 or 4, about recent sightings, respect these anomalous objects and aerial.
That is some weird shit.
Linear 2735, between 120, 7, good day.
Michelin 120.7, good day, Marina 2734.
Nos encanta ser parte de sus celebraciones. Por eso queremos felicitar a una princesa muy especial llamada Ana Sofía, quien se encuentra hoy cumpliendo años. Te deseamos muchas bendiciones y que seas...
metros de altura. No es un avión,
This
no
is
es
not a
un
plane,
dron,
it's
no
not a
es un
drone,
globo.
it's
Evidentemente
not
es
a
un objeto
balloon.
anómalo.
Obviously, it's an unidentified anomalous phenomena.
Y creo
And
que
this
fue
is,
grabado desde
I think
un
this was
aeropuerto,
taken
un
from an
pasajero,
airport.
un
A
objeto
passenger
paseándose
took
sobre
it.
las pistas del
This was the
aeropuerto,
object was like floating around
pues demostrando
the
que
airport,
están
demonstrating
constantemente
that
cerca de los
it's
aviones,
constantly
que
close to
constituyen un
airplanes,
verdadero peligro
and they
como-
truly do
como
constitute
lo
a danger,
podrá, pues,
as
reconocer,
can be
José Ángel
recognized
Guevara,
by José Ángel Guevara,
porque ellos tienen que ver con esto
because they
constantemente.
have to deal with
Entonces,
this
yo creo que
constantly.
invito al
So
diputado
I
Sergio
invite
a
Deputy
considerar
Sergio
con
to
estas
consider
modificaciones
with
a las
these
leyes
modifications
que
to
se
the
pueda
laws
instaurar algún tipo
that
de
there may
oficina
need to be
que
some kind
investigue
of
este
office
fenómeno.
that researches about this.
Bueno, ahora vamos
Now
con
we'll continue with
el abogado
the
de
lawyer
Perú, el
of
doctor
Peru, Dr.
Rafael
Arcángel Berrocal
que nos
Ramos,
presentará una
who will present
ponencia,
to us
lagunas
a
jurídicas en el
speech
manejo
about
de los
the
seres biológicos no humanos.
jurisdiction in the managing of non-human unidentified objects.
¿Te parece así? Gracias.
Buenas tardes
Good evening
a todos los hombres y mujeres
to
del
all
mundo
the men and women from the
y a las
world,
autoridades que nos permiten
to all the
esta
authorities that
oportunidad de
allow
una
us
manera
this
muy
opportunity,
especial, a nuestro amigo
and in a very special way
al
to our
valiente
friend, to the very
diputado
brave
Luna.
Deputy
Muchísimas
Luna.
gracias
Thank
por
you very
abrir esta
much
ventana
for opening this window,
nueva
this
de reto
this new
humano
window, this
en este planeta.
challenge into this
Hoy
this new world.
Nos encontramos
Today,
aquí para abordar un
we
tema
find ourselves
apasionante
here to take on
y
a
trascendental
passion
que ha cautivado la
interesting
imaginación
subject
de la humanidad
that has taken
durante
hold
décadas.
of humanity's
La
imagination
existencia de
during
vidas no
decades,
humano
the existence
y los
of
objetos no identificados,
non-human
también
lives
conocidos como
and
cuerpos
unidentified anomalous
anómalos
phenomena
no humanos.
or anomalous
momento
non-human bodies.
De abordar
It's
algunas
time
lagunas
to
jurídicas
take
en
into
relación
account
con
some
los
legal
estudios
loopholes
científicos de
in
estos
relation to the
fenómenos y
scientific
trabajar
studies
juntos
about
para
this phenomena,
promover una ley
and together
que nos permita
work
conocer
together
la
to promote
verdad
a
y
law
dejar
that
un
will allow
legado de
us
conocimiento a
to
la
know the truth
generación
and
futuras,
give a
porque
legacy
creemos
of
que el
truth
derecho
to the
humano
people that will
fundamental
follow
de
us,
conocer la
because
verdad
we believe that
y de
humans
explorar
have a right
el vasto
to know the
universo
truth and
en el
explore
que
the very big,
nosotros
vast universe
habitamos.
that we live in.
Durante siglos,
For centuries,
nuestra curiosidad
our
y sed de
curiosity
conocimiento
and
ha
thirst
sido
for knowledge
impulsos
has been
primordiales
the
que han
primary
impulsado
motivator
nuestro progreso
behind
y
our
desarrollo como
progress
sociedad.
and development as
Sin
a society.
en el
However,
caso de los seres
in the case
anómalos,
of anomalous
cabe la
beings,
posibilidad de vida
there's
no
the
humana,
possibility
en el
that
cual
this
nos
non-human
enfrentamos
life,
a un vacío
we may
legal,
find
a
ourselves with
una
a legal
falta de
loophole,
marco normativo que nos
with
permita
a lack of a,
y
marginal
guíe en nuestra
norms
investigación
that
con
will
respaldo
guide
jurídico de
our
los estados
investigation
de todos los
through
países del mundo.
a scientific research.
Mientras miramos hacia las
Meanwhile,
estrellas,
as we look towards the
nuestros
stars,
hijos y nietos
our sons and
también lo
grandsons will also
y
do
tienen
so.
todo el derecho de
And they
conocer
have all the
la
right
posible
to know
verdad que
the
se
possible
esconde más
truth
allá
that
de
hides
nuestro planeta.
beyond our
Es
planet.
crucial
It's crucial
promocionar
to
un
promote
marco legal sólido que
a
fomente la
solid legal
investigación
framework
científica en el
that
campo
will
de los cuerpos
cement
no humanos,
scientific
con el fin de
research
explorar,
into
entender
anomalous
mejor
beings
nuestro lugar
to better
en el
understand
universo.
our place in the
Y
universe.
en última instancia,
as the last point, we might want to offer an important, concise view of our interactions with these anomalous beings in the past, in the present, and in the future. However, obviously, there's going to be risks. Like a lot of scientists have suffered, yes, but yes, they managed to catapult our progress in this earth. We know about the visits from these beings. We call the scientists to have a better handle on these non-human remains. This is why our humanity is still profoundly submerged in ignorance from any kind of non-human new technology. It would be a great challenge for humanity to absorb their knowledge and technological advancements in favor of humanity in this planet Earth. That's why it's so important to promote this law that will allow us to better have a legal framework about these important appearances, and it will take a very important step towards transparency and equal access to information and about divulgation about any kind of appearance and any kind of citing about these anomalous non-human appearances. It shouldn't be for the few, it should be for all human beings. Based on our right to liberty, to freedom, our right to work, to life. Plus, we must consider the impact that this law may have on the economy and in the technological industry. We know that the space explorations and scientific studies are the ones that have catapulted important progress into medicine, information, and informatics. And that's why this research may open new opportunities for the progress of more revolutionary technologies that may create jobs, may stimulate our economic advancement. It's our responsibility as human beings to investigate and understand our environment, even if that means to further submerge ourselves into the mysteries of the universe by promoting a law that promotes the research of these anomalous bodies and to exercise our right to know the truth, guaranteeing our access to truth. And we need to leave behind a legacy of knowledge to our children and to the future generations. It's a responsibility for everybody. These bodies, these anomalous bodies, these non-human beings shouldn't be seen as sources of fear, but as doors to new understandings of our existence. I plead with you to join forces so that we may all work together and we may promote these laws that promote these discoveries, that we may be able to declare this humanity. This will help us be closer to understand our place in the cosmos. This is why we exhort the presidents, the ministers of state, these deputies, these congressmen, these legislators, to please to propose this kind of legal framework that will help to protect these scientific studies about these weird non-human beings and we may use them for analysis so that we human beings may understand the science behind the secret. We need to manifest that this lack of solid scientific evidence, we need it so that we may back up these sightings, these unverifiable sightings are such because we need to make ufology an actual scientific branch. And we can see here how biased these investigations are, because it says that ufology is biased because it believes in non-human bodies. However, this lack of research, this lack of searching leads to the world having so few of these theories. We have so little cooperation between Peru and Mexico and all these other countries in planet Earth. And this all is due to the government's secrecy regarding this subject. Citizens of the world, scientists, politicians, authorities, we all need to make sure that they propose more international cooperation about these sightings of anomalous bodies, betting on the compilation of these sightings, of all these methods, of all these solid scientific methods, so that we may patch these legal loopholes. And this may all be a great challenge, but we need to be able to reveal newer beings that are non-humans, and be they present or future. I call from here to a reflection to all human beings. Don't we all have the right to know about other scientific branches, about other intelligences? Why can't we have an in-depth study about this kind of thing? Our sons, our children, they need to know the truth, because they deserve to rewrite the history of humanity with their realities, with the knowledge of other beings, of other intelligences, so that we may solidify the knowledge of man. Being what that is, we need to consolidate the right of man to have the right to knowledge, to truth. This is why this meeting is really like an audience. To the eyes of the audience, this deputy, to these deputies here, please help me. Long live humanity. Long live universal rights, and long live knowledge. Thank you very much.
Licensed, do you want to say that in this moment, in Peru, these bodies, anomalous bodies, biological, they are not protected? They're not only in Peru, but also in every country of the world in which any weird non-human body is, because we still need to regulate a constitutional reform that officially recognizes to which segment or criteria of life it belongs. That's why it's very important that every one of the countries take into account and reconsider to take the profound study to be able to intervene in an actual constitutional reform. And from here I want to congratulate this chamber that actually is making a beginning that we should follow, with the purpose of being better and some restrictions of ignorance that we have in the science. So until you recently until recently you were really skeptical. What changed? Yes, like everyone. We are probably very skeptical to these new appearances, to these new findings. I was a personal testimony that the body that is going to be presented is identical, is legitimate, but is unknown to the human beings. And that's why science should research this very thoroughly, so that it takes an actual impact in the history. You are a very recognized lawyer, constitutionalist, by the way. That means that are you going to make a proposal through the Congress so that the laws are changed? According to the rights, to the civil rights of our Peruvian society, we, as a group of professionals or as an institution, we have the right to exercise a legislative proposal. But there's also the order of the Lawyer College of Peru. And if we are going to do that, even if any parliamentary wants to do this. But I think that today, two great congressmen who were brave enough to come here, and I really want to highlight their presences. Congressman, please, and the father of our country. I want to give you a very, very warm welcome. Thank you very much, Congressman Gutierrez and Congressman Takuri. Sincerely, they are from the interior of the country. But just like them, everyone, we all have to work hard to seek for the hope in the world. Thank you very much.
Well,
quiero presentar
I
aquí
want
una
to
carta
present here a letter
envió
that
el rector de la
was sent
Universidad
here
de
by the head of the University of Peru,
el señor Moreno
Mr. Moreno Legua,
rector de la universidad, y que fue
head of the
firmada
university, and it was
por
signed
11 catedráticos
by
de la universidad.
11
Esto como el
heads of the
preámbulo
university.
a
That
la
is,
presentación
this is before
de las
we start
investigaciones
the
que van a hacer aquí
presentation of the
diversos científicos
of the
del
research.
más alto nivel. Vamos a escucharlo.
Here we're going to hear it.
Universidad Nacional
National University San Luis Gonzaga.
Año de la Unidad,
Declaration.
de la Paz y el Desarrollo. Pronunciamiento de la Universidad San
Declaration
Luis
from the
Gonzaga,
UNSLG
sobre el
ICA
caso de
regarding
los
the
cuerpos
tridactyl
y
desiccated
dáctilos
bodies from the
de
Nazca case.
La Universidad
National
Nacional
University San Luis Gonzaga,
UNSLG,
ICA Perú,
a través
through
de
its
su equipo de
research team,
investigación,
wishes to
desea
address
dirigirse a la comunidad
the scientist
científica a
community
nivel
at a
nacional
national and
e
international level,
así como a las
as well as the
autoridades
authorities
y
and
al
the general
público en
public,
general, para
to inform
informar
about our
sobre nuestra
studies
labor de
labor
estudio
regarding the
en relación a los
tridactyl
cuerpos
desiccated
desecados
bodies
tridáctilos con
with both human
características
and
tanto
reptilian
humanas como
characteristics
reptilianas que
that
han
have
sido
been known through
conocidos en
public
los medios
media
de
as the
comunicación
Nazca
como
mummies.
las momias de Nazca.
These mummies were discovered in the Palpa and Nazca provinces in the Ica department, Peru. As time has passed, this finding has acquired notoriety in public media, generating controversy and debate. In this sense, we wish to clarify and communicate the following. Number one, on the 1st of August of 2019, National University San Luis Gonzaga, UNSLG, of Ica, Peru, received 4 desiccated bodies with both human and reptilian characteristics. These specimens were handed in by the journalist Jorge Israel Mantilla Carvajal, in virtue of his right to reserve and in compliance with the source of information confidentiality principle, as stated in the second article, subsection 18 of the Political Constitution of Peru. The delivery of these bodies was made with the intent of their custody, conservation, and to perform research destined to clarify the authenticity of said desiccated specimens. Number 2, the bigger body, which has been named Maria, presents a similar size to that of a human being, except for notable anatomical differences, among which stand out an elongated skull and the presence of 3 digits both in hands and feet. The osteological and imaging analysis of the extremities show harmony and structural congruence. with lack of evidence for challenges mutilations, rather evidence of inflammatory injuries in the dorsal spine and feet, except for the smaller body's case, which has been named Guaguita. Number 3, the smaller bodies, that are approximately 60 centimeters long, exhibit a morphological and anatomical structure that significantly differ from those of the human being. The skin presents both morphological and histological characteristics that are very similar to those of the reptiles, and both their hands and feet are tridactyl. Furthermore, they possess voluminous skulls, and their bones in general are very different to human anatomy, showing atypical characteristics and traits, unique and sui generis. It is important to highlight that there has not been found any rigid or metallic union element or support in the articulations in the joints across the whole body. Due to the uniqueness of these bodies and the substantial anatomical and structural differences, further research is required to better understand their nature. Number 4, the metallurgical analysis, performed through a scanning electron microscopy, SEM, of a metallic pectoral implant revealed an important finding. It was determined that the implant is formed by an alloy of a variety of metals, osmium being the main element. It is relevant to highlight that osmium is an element that was officially discovered by Smithson-Tannat and William Hyde Wollaston in 1903. Due to its electric properties, osmium is used in the fabrication of some electronic devices and in the production of sensors. Additionally, the microscopic study through an optic metallography has revealed the existence of a matrix of microstructures with microscopic pores and microinclusions in the implant. Number 5. Nevertheless, despite the progress pointing towards the confirmation that these bodies are real and the presence of osmium in a metallic implant, it is evident that further research is required due to the marked structural and morphological differences that have been detected through the compared anatomy. Therefore, it is important to highlight that these preliminary results are not conclusive. Number 6. During the conservation and custody period of the desiccated fetus, our research team, mainly formed by specialist medics, has encountered multiple obstacles in the execution and proper culmination of the research. These challenges include the pandemic, budget limitations, lack of institutional support, lack of logistics, equipment, as well as legal interference from organizations like the Ministry of Culture and the Public Ministry. Despite these obstacles, we managed to perform imaging studies based on X-ray examination and tomographies using resources provided by the research team itself, and metallurgic studies with the support of the National University of Engineering. Number 7. It is important to highlight that the research team has never stated that these bodies belong to extraterrestrial beings. During our research, the most we can state is that from a scientific standpoint, these are biological bodies of unknown origins that existed in the past, but not human. Our approach is based on rigorous study and the research for answers within science, without making speculative statements about the nature of these bodies. Number 8. It is important to highlight that, from the beginning, the research team has never been motivated by any mediatic, politic, economic, or interest of any other nature. Number 9. Our sole intention has been to perform scientific research with the purpose to determine rigorously if the pterodactyl desiccated bodies of humanoid appearance are authentic or if they have been falsified, if they are biological origin or not, and to uncover the mysteries that surround their authenticity. Our commitment has been the progress of the scientific knowledge and the search for answers about these specimens. Number 10. Finally, as a result of our research, the team has come to the conclusion that the studied desiccated bodies are completely authentic from a biological standpoint and do not show any sign of being manipulated or manufactured in any way. Our scientific approach has been rigorous, and the results contribute to the authenticity of these bodies. Letter signed by 11 high scientists of the ICA Peru University, 1st of November of 2003.
I think it's a very firm declaration of the university that turns down any of the questions that have been turning up, especially those where there haven't been any kind of investigation or research to determine the authenticity or not. The most qualified, without a doubt, are the heads of the ICA University. They have had the bodies in their power for 4 years, and they have researched them day and night, and they have come to this conclusion. And it makes it, in my opinion, extremely firm. Now I want to invite here to Mr. Benjamin, without whose participation this would have never happened. When we saw for the first time these images on the internet, we generally thought, as everyone, that they were manufactured, that they were not real. But when we called with him in a phone call, and thanks for Comrade Fernando Correa, he said very emphatically, come to Peru, come to see them, and just see them with your own eyes and not through the images. That's what I did. And as everyone who have been close to these bodies, I have come to the same conclusion. They are authentic. And I want to thank to Thierry and to everyone that has collaborated with us, that they have given all the research that he has made and to share it with the whole world. Go ahead, Thierry. Thank you. Maybe we can show the direct video. Well, Mr. Deputy, Mr. Congressman, ladies and gentlemen, firstly, it's a great honor for me and the Institute to take part in this great event that was organized by the Mr. Deputy Sergio Gutiérrez Luna and by Mr. Jaime Maussan. In this state of the Mexican democracy, to evoke among you the very polemic case that the desiccated bodies, non-human, of Nazca that were found, or that were supposedly found, in a still unknown place that is in the north of the city of Nazca, in the south coast of Nazca, by the famous Mario, in quotes, or Leandro Rivera, during the year of 2015, of what we know. I want to highlight that we don't really have anything to do with the ufology. We make archaeological research, and just that. In October of 2016, we were contacted by a Peruvian journalist, Mr. Tombini, and a Paul Ronceros, that had in their possession strange biological objects and that they were mummified. I will tell you that one of their friends, the famous Mario, he had found close to a funerary location, close to Nazca, a weird archaeological complex underground that was made of galleries and holes and of salons in a lot of levels, and in a very poor state of conservation. And he really insisted that he had found a lot of remains in a lot of areas. Paul Roncero, he wanted to know if we could be able to help him to determine if his relics were authentic, and if we could help him to share this information. And that's why, when we have had the conviction that it could have been a very serious matter and very real, we have decided to research this case with two main objectives. First, to share the information so that nobody can hide this, and secondly, to research the case and to determine if these desiccated bodies were authentic or fake in the mark of a traffic or in some sort of modern joke or pun. So this had a very small possibility for this to be real, but it was worth to take the risk because of the implications of every kind of level, historical, religious impact. And in January of 2017, as we can see, I sent a letter to Mr. Nieto, Minister of Culture, and Pedro, to try and take the attention of the Peruvian authorities about this possible finding and about the risks of people trying to steal all of these archaeological sites from part of treasure hunters, but they did nothing. So in February and March of 2017, we have done, with collaboration with my friend Ana Bonet, and thanks to the support of all of these people, we have been able to finance and we have been able to start the research. A lot of biological elements that Mario had lent us. And around these times, there were cut heads and big hands of 3 digits and 6 phalanges. And a little later in March, Mario, he had revealed incredible bodies, incredible complete bodies that were humanoid or reptilian. The first one was named Albert for the interns, and the second one, which we can see here in the screen, was named Josefina. She is 57 centimeters long. Albert is 60. She has a metallic implant in the thorax, and we had found that she had 4 eggs in her abdomen, that they were informing, and a little egg that was forming in her reproductive system. So this is all the stuff that we have found with Mr. Jaime Maussan, and we've also found stuff with some other friends from Gaia.com, and thanks to them we've been able to start with this very important collaboration. So thank you to all my friends in Gaia. Some weeks later, Mario had found new bodies, completely incredible. He talked about Maria, who we can see right now in the screen, that might correspond to a hybrid being. And then Mario showed us Victoria, and they all have their names: Victoria, Guaguita, La Familia, and so much more. In November of 2018, thanks to Mr. Congressman Armando Villanueva, we have presented in the Congress of the Peruvian Congress all the results of the analysis that we had done during for years with Mr. Jaime and with Gaia. The results are that every specialist that came to Peru to study these bodies came to the conclusion that these bodies were authentic, were in fact authentic, and that they are biological beings, and that these beings were alive at some point in time. The laboratories concluded that these bodies had centuries and even millennia of of antiquity. These bodies do not belong to the human species. And that is why the laboratories will talk about at least two unknown species. And I want to insist about this very important point, that none of the laboratories have talked about extraterrestrials. And finally, in November of 2019, we have convinced, with our friend Joyce Montilla, to our other friend Mario, to hand in to the University of Ica the mummies, or desiccated bodies, that we had studied, to let the Dr. José Zúñiga, for them to be able to make their own analysis and take their own conclusions. We know that these desiccated bodies have generated a global controversy, very strong. Nevertheless, until today, every specialist that have actually taken action and come here to Peru and to study them, they have concluded that these bodies are authentic. And all the specialists, or pseudo-specialists, or so-called specialists, that state that they really think that this is fraudulent, they have never come to Ica to study these desiccated bodies. Not a single one. Before leaving the word to all the specialists that will present all their marvelous works of analysis and their conclusions, I would like to speak very rapidly about a paleontologist of USA. Today retired, but with a very important career. It is Dr. Cliff Miles. In the United States, he, for example, made one of the museums of paleontology one of the most important in the country, and he has a lot of scientific publications of the highest quality. And he is very interested in this desiccated bodies case. And he has studied a lot of these bodies. And I will quickly say that his last conclusions were that, in first place, he says they are authentic bodies and that they have suffered a mummification process. Their bodies were, they had two types of bath with the objective for them to be preserved better. One was a type of resin. Josefina, for example, she had a very clear particles of resin application. And Paul had a very clear zones of droppings that did not cover all his skin, and we can appreciate that here. The diatom soil was the second application in the process of mummification. In conclusion, I would like to invite the researchers of all around the world to have an open mind and to join this research. I would also like for the Peruvian authorities and like the Ministry of Culture that they would I would like them to show the same openness of mind so that they can work with the specialists and the scientists of the ICA. The same way, I would like that at the end of this process of research, every desiccated body that are discovered go back to the Nazca region, because all of these mummies were taken from Peru. The Incari Institute does not approve of this traffic, and we are not in favor of all of this. And just like this desiccated body of a hybrid nature that a Robert from Nazca has shown me some days ago. It appears to be from the same species of Maria, and we are currently investigating this case. This is an exclusive, and it was a surprise for Mr. Jaime. I think that this is a great cultural patrimony of the nation and of the humanity. If these bodies are authentic, they this could be a very important archaeological discovery, one of the most important of the history. Finally, I would like to announce the launching of a great project, the Museum of the Non-Human Mummies for 2024 in Nazca. And my research team and me are going to be in the Nazca zone to find the local responsibles of the Nazca zone for this great project. And that's why we need the support of the population, of the political responsible people, and of a good collaboration with the culture ministry, with which we cannot do anything about. And this project could contribute to the development, the touristic development of Nazca and Papa. And with that, the Incari Institute will work in the days, weeks, and months yet to come. To finish, I would like to congratulate very strongly the Mr. Deputy and my friend Jaime Maussan for everything that they are doing for the truth to go out. Thank you very much. Long live Mexico. Long live Peru.
Jerry,
Jerry,
quiere decir que hay mucho más.
does this mean that there's more?
Yes, this site for me, the point, the most important is the site. And the site exists, and we know that it exists. It must exist. Hundreds or thousands of these bodies. And the iconography that we can find between the south of Lima and the north of Chile, the petroglyphs, ceramics, they show these tridactyl beings of reptilian nature with eggs in sculptures from Nazca. We're talking about 1,000 years ago. It's the 8th century before Christ. We're talking about thousands of years of a possible contact between the locals and a society that we don't know where they come from, but it's an evidence that does exist. And even in this site, there is maybe thousands of specimens. There are two very important elements
about this that we're going to be discussed and we're going to reveal something extraordinary. It's the possibility that this is a hybrid. Maria could have been a hybrid. Who could have done a hybrid of genes? Well, I'm not gonna... I won't say before the experts say it.
For me, one of the definitive proof, or the ultimate proof of these DNA results that we have done with you and with our friends from Gaia, that they have confirmed that they are not human. And I think that we have used the professionalism of the most qualified laboratories of the world, and their conclusions are very clear. And we have found fingerprints from the hands and feet from Maria, and these fingerprints are not from the Homo sapiens. We have the fingerprints in like a spiral, while Maria has their fingerprints in a different manner. So she could have a DNA or fingerprints that we don't know. It's impossible.
The other thing is the metals, the metallic implants that these beings have.
I don't know if you have seen at the beginning of the video we showed a specimen that we have named Artemis, that he has she has 3 eggs, 3 plates, and all of these plates have osmium.
But who put it there?
That's the question. That's a great question.
If osmium wasn't discovered until like 2 centuries ago, we're talking about 1,000 years ago. Well, all of this remains open up to imagination. We won't say what we shouldn't say, but we'll leave these questions there. One day they must be answered.
I hope
Te felicito
that
por toda tu labor y al Instituto
I thank
Incari.
you for your
No eres el
for all
único,
your
hay
work
todo un
and the
equipo detrás de ti
Ikari
que
Institute.
merecen también el reconocimiento.
All your team behind you also deserves the recognition.
I would like also to greet my friends that some are here in the chamber, and the vice president of the institute. That and they are watching us from France. Hello, Alain, and thank you, Jaime, everyone, to everyone. Thank you to everyone. Thank you, Tarek.
Bueno, antes de
Well,
continuar
before we
con
continue
las
with
evidencias que se van a
the
presentar, que nos
evidence
van a
that
dejar
will be
estupefactos,
present that will leave us
tal y como
stupefied,
ocurrió en la
just
primera
like it
audiencia,
happened in the first
quiero
audience.
invitar
I want to
a nuestro
invite
amigo Claudio
our friend
Gatto,
Claudio
un
Gatto,
famosísimo rapero
an extremely famous
de otra
rapper
generación,
of another generation,
que nos dé unas palabras, por
to
favor.
give us some words, please.
Muy buenas tardes a todos.
Good evening, everybody.
Cámara de Diputados, muchas
To the
gracias,
entire
Sergio, muchas
chamber
gracias,
of
Padrino Maussan. Me
deputies,
vine a meter aquí a
my
su
friend
conferencia. Yo no
Mr.
soy
Maussan.
científico,
I am not
pero
scientist,
les quiero decir una cosa.
but
Yo
I
he
want to
tenido la
say
suerte,
something
¿verdad?
to you.
Desde
I've had a luck since
1984, cuando
1884,
vi la primera vez
when I was,
en
for
el
the
mar
first
del
time,
universo, el Padrino Maussan mostró
in the
las
Sea of the
fotografías del
Universe,
señor suizo
Mr.
Billy
Maussan
Mayer. Yo
showed
decía, están muy
the
buenas como para ser,
photographs from this
falsificadas.
Swiss man, Billy
Y
Mayer. I said
una de
these
las
are
cosas que oí
too
ahí,
good to be
dice, si usted
falsified.
quiere ver ovnis,
And
usted
I
tiene
said,
que
well,
voltear
if you
para el techo,
if you
¿verdad?
wanna
Y
see ovnis,
fíjese
then you
que
need to
desde
look upwards.
1984
And well,
yo
since
he tenido muchísimos
1984,
avistamientos.
I've had
Hoy he tenido,
so
gracias
many
a la tecnología,
so
la
many
oportunidad
sightings.
de grabar
Thanks to technology, I've been able to
muchísimos eventos que
record
pasan. Ahorita ya
so
le
many
mandé varios
events.
aquí al maestro
I've sent
Tlaxcalteco, pero me ha
several to
tocado de
this
todo.
to our Tlaxcalteca
Estelas,
master
cilindros,
friend.
Platillo,
This
de todo tipo, y los he
floating.
podido registrar desde
I've been
mi
able
casa,
to register
porque
them from my
técnicamente yo
house
vivo
because
en un octavo
technically
piso,
I
tengo una
live
visión
from
como
an
280,
8th floor where I have
y
like
como me dicen, ¿y
an
cómo los
extremely
ves,
good
Arturo?
view,
¿Los llamas?
and they're
Le
like,
digo, nada
Yato,
más
how do
le
you
hago
see them? Do you
namum.
call them? And I'm like, I'm just doing namum.
Y de repente
And
digo,
then
no, pues
suddenly,
volteando
no,
para el
actually,
techo, la verdad que
just looking up,
yo no tengo
looking
ninguna
up
prueba
to the
científica, yo
ceiling.
tengo
I
los
don't have
videos,
any
y yo en verdad que
scientific
no creo en
proof.
los ovnis,
I just
porque creer
give
es
the
dudar.
evidence.
Yo sé que existen porque
I don't
pasan
believe in
todos los días.
ovnis because
Te digo,
to
veo
believe is to
Isla
doubt,
Cihuat, veo,
and I see them every
el
day.
Ajusco,
I see the
veo
Cihuat,
Santa Fe,
I see the Justo,
y por
I
ahí
see Santa
parece
Fe.
como si fuera ahí el periférico de
And
ellos,
yeah,
padrino.
it's
Yo le he
like
mandado
it's
varios,
like
me dice el
periférico,
señor
like they
Maussan,
go so many
oye, pero
through
se ven
them.
muy chiquitos, le digo, pues ya afloje
And
la
Maussan
cámara,
says they
Claudito
seem so
Juan.
little, and I'm like, well, just
Y
pay
te
attention
digo,
to the camera.
tuve la suerte, ¿verdad?
And like I
de
said,
hecho,
I've had
al
the
principio
luck.
de mi carrera,
At the beginning of my
obviamente, las
career,
canciones que
well,
concierto fue
obviously
primero, creo, El
the
Capitán,
songs
pero la primera que
I
lancé se
made
llama El
was
Planeta,
the
y
first song I made was
técnicamente
The Planet.
era el mensaje,
And
¿verdad?,
technically,
que nos
it
daba
was
Billy
the
Mayer
message
a
that
través
Billy
del
Mayer
programa
was giving
que
us
vi
through
con el
this
señor Maussan de la
through
capa de
this-
ozono, de la destrucción de la
through
capa
this
de
program
ozono,
of the
que estaba sucediendo, eso dice la canción.
destruction
Hablo
of
de
the
60 minutos,
ozone cape.
porque fue
I
donde
speak
yo
about
escuché
60
todo el
minutes
mensaje,
because that's where
y
I
en
heard the
verdad
entire
que
message.
estamos en un
And
oasis en
truly,
el universo,
we
y
are at an
a mí se
oasis
me
in
hace,
the
¿verdad?,
universe,
que
and
estos señores
I do think that
parece que nada más están esperando a que
these
nosotros
guys
nos destruyamos
are just waiting for
para
us to
que se
destroy
acabe esta raza y
ourselves
recuperen lo
to
demás,
be able to
porque
take this
seguimos
place.
contaminando el planeta.
Because
Yo le canto
we're
al
still
planeta.
we're
Hemos
still
hablado de las
contaminating.
guerras, hemos
We've talked
hablado de
about
la
wars.
contaminación,
We've talked about
hemos hablado
contamination.
de
We've talked
cómo
about
estamos
how
desperdiciando
we
nuestra
are
herencia
just
de 15,000 millones de
throwing
años de evolución cósmica en una absurda
15,000
destrucción
millions
por
of years of
contaminación
evolution we're throwing into the
bélica.
trash just due to
Lo que pasa en el primer
contamination,
segundo del
due
próximo
to
año cósmico,
conflict,
como diría
war.
el señor Sagan, lo que pasa en el primer
Well,
segundo
whatever
del próximo
happens
año
in the
cósmico dependerá
first
de lo que
second of the
hagamos
next
aquí y
cosmic
ahora
year
con nuestra
depends on what we
inteligencia
do
y el
now
conocimiento de su planeta.
with our knowledge about this
Huracanes,
planet.
lluvias torrenciales, terremotos, infecciones sexuales, esa es la
We all are
respuesta
for
que
our-
estamos obteniendo del planeta que el humano
We are
está
getting
perdiendo.
we're getting answers from
Las
the planet.
condiciones día a
We are
día
losing
empeorando. Yo sigo
the
rapeando, diciendo,
everything.
"¿Eres cuándo?".
All
Debemos
of the
cuidar
conditions
el
are getting
piso
worse.
que estamos pisando.
We must
Nos
take care of
estamos
the floor we're
alentando.
taking.
¿Que ustedes no piensan en eso?
Don't you all
Eso
think
por su
about that?
cabeza no pasa.
Doesn't this
¿O
all
es que
pass through
tienen
your
el
head?
dinero para ir a la NASA y en la
Or is
Luna
this
les
all
construyen
that
una casa?
you
Buenas
have
tardes.
the money to go to the moon and NASA builds you up home up there?
Buenas tardes.
Buenas tardes.
Buenas tardes. Buenas tardes. Buenas tardes. Buenas tardes. Buenas tardes. Buenas tardes. Buenas tardes. Buenas tardes. Buenas tardes. Buenas tardes. Buenas tardes. Buenas tardes. Buenas tardes. Buenas tardes. Buenas tardes. Buenas tardes. Buenas tardes. Buenas tardes. Buenas tardes. Buenas tardes. Buenas tardes. Buenas tardes. Buenas tardes. Buenas tardes. Buenas tardes. Buenas tardes. Buenas tardes. Buenas tardes. Buenas tardes. Buenas tardes. Buenas tardes. Buenas tardes. Buenas tardes. Buenas tardes. Buenas tardes. Buenas tardes. Buenas tardes. Buenas tardes. Buenas tardes. Buenas tardes. Buenas tardes. Buenas tardes. Buenas tardes. Buenas tardes. Buenas tardes. Buenas tardes. Buenas tardes. Buenas tardes.
Bueno,
Well,
ahora
now
le doy la palabra
I'll give the word
con el
to,
permiso del
with
diputado,
the
al-
allowance of the
al
deputy,
doctor
to the Dr.
Willy
David
Ruiz Vela,
Willy Ruiz
de la
Vela
Universidad Nacional
from
de
the
Ica.
ICA
Es un
University.
hombre que
He is a
fue
man that
presidente
was president
de la Asociación
of
de
the
Médicos
Association
Legales
of
de
Legal
Perú.
Medics of
Es
Peru.
parte de la
He
Academia
is part
Nacional
of
de
the National
Ciencias de
Academy
Nueva
of
York
Sciences
y
in Nueva
tiene
York,
todo mi
and he
respeto
has all
en
my
los
respect.
días que lo he
In the
conocido.
days that I have known him,
Es un hombre
he is a
con
man
una experiencia, un
with
conocimiento
a great
muy
experience
profundo.
and a very
Yo
profound
les pido
knowledge,
que lo
and I really
escuchemos
want you to
con gran
hear
atención y
him with
cuidado.
great
Adelante,
attention and
David.
carefulness.
Muchas gracias. Por favor,
Go ahead,
comencemos con el
David.
video.
We go forth with
primer
the
video.
video, with the first
Soy uno.
video. There's just one.
Bien.
Okay.
Agradezco a
I
los
thank
organizadores
the,
y
the
a
organization
ustedes,
and to you,
legisladores de un país
legislators
hermano,
of
por abrir
my
su
brother
mente
country, to open
a
your
elementos
minds
disruptivos
to disruptive
que
elements
para la
that
inmensa
to
mayoría
the
requiere
immense
salir de
vast
su zona de
majority they
confort y
would
visión
require
del
to go
país,
out of their
visión
comfort
del
zone
mundo. Para
and
otros
to get
quizás
this vision of the world.
forzar su
To others maybe
alertada
to
parálisis
force
paradigmática.
their paradigmatic
Los videos
paralysis.
iniciales que se van a
The
pasar
initial
mientras
videos
yo
that
hago
will
la
go
primera parte
as
de mi
I say the
presentación
first part of
son
my presentation
en homenaje
are
a
in
más de 100
homage to
profesionales
more of
que han
100
trabajado
professionals that
centenas de
have
horas
worked a lot
en
of
cerca de
hours
6 años.
and in more than
El segundo
6
video
years.
muestra
The second
momentos en que
video
yo estaba
will show moments in
evaluando
which
a
I
una
was
de estas
evaluating
entidades
one of
biológicas.
these biological
Yo,
entities.
como médico
I,
legista,
as a
que es
medic,
la denominación latina
which
de mi
is
especialidad,
the denomination
o
of my
como
specialty,
forense,
or
que es
as
la
a forensic,
denominación
which is the
anglosajona, nos preparamos para
English term,
investigar,
I would
para
like,
buscar la verdad
I have
de
prepared
lo
to search for the
detrás de lo
truth
aparente,
that
para
has
dar
been hiding
explicaciones
behind what is
al foro,
apparent,
a un foro como este.
to a
En este
forum like
magno
this one, in this
La
great
ciencia
event. The
tiene
science
un método,
has a method,
que es el
which
método
is
científico.
the scientific method.
En esta etapa de investigación
In this
preliminar,
development,
algunos de los datos
some of the
obtenidos
data
ya
that
son
we have obtained
concluidos.
are already conclusive.
No obstante, requieren
Nevertheless, they
verificación por
still
otros
require
investigadores
the
en el
verification of other
sentido
researchers
de
in the
hacer el
sense
mismo análisis para
that they
obtener
need to do the same analysis
el
to
mismo
obtain the
resultado.
same result.
En mi país,
In my country,
como en muchos otros
like
países,
in many other
no hay
countries, there are no specialists in
y en tomografía por
paleogenetics.
conteo de fotones, de ser posible.
And with
Para
other
este estudio, como
studies.
mínimo, se requiere
In this
un
study,
tomógrafo de la mayor
you would
resolución
need
posible,
a
que nos
very,
dará
very,
siempre
very
mayor
fine-tuned
precisión.
tomography that
Es por esto que
requires
se requiere un
for the
equipo
great precision,
multidisciplinario y un
and they
presupuesto
require a great
significativo.
multidisciplinary
Todavía en
team
muchos
and a
países,
very, very high budget.
incluyendo el mío,
Some of the
Perú,
countries, including
con la
mine,
tecnología
Peru,
atrasada que
with
manejamos, si a la
the
unidad
outdated
científica de la
technology
Fiscalía de la Nación le
that we have,
alcanzáramos un
if
fragmento
we had
fosilizado de un dinosaurio,
a fossilized
nos
fragment of a dinosaur,
reportarían
we would be reported
que hallaron piedra.
that they found
Señores, no me estoy burlando.
stone.
Así estamos.
Mr.
Porque los análisis
Ladies and gentlemen,
químicos saldrían los
I'm not
minerales
joking.
que
This is what is
corresponden a una
happening.
piedra. Y hay una enorme diferencia entre
If
una
you,
piedra
there's
y
a
un fósil.
great difference between a
Universidad
stone
de
and a
Ica
fossil,
es
and
la
they
que está a
confuse
cargo.
these two.
Y la
The
que debe
University of
estar a cargo.
Ica is
Estoy seguro que
the
hará
one who is in
alianzas
charge and
necesarias
that
para
who needs to
que
be in
en una
charge.
segunda
There will need to be
etapa
required to
proseguir con las
be an
investigaciones cuando la
alliances
Fiscalía
in the
de
second
mi país suspenda los
block,
bloqueos
so that
y los
my
procesos a los
country
investigadores.
suspends the blockages
La
to
ciencia,
the
señores,
researchers.
está fuera
Science
de las creencias
is out
o no
of
creencias,
the
asuntos
beliefs
de fe
or
están fuera de lugar en este recinto. Acá se ha
faith
demostrado
is
con
out of the
evidencias nuestras
place in
investigaciones,
this
y yo
forum.
presentaré
I will present
algo que
now
les sorprenderá.
something that will
A los que
surprise
puedan
you.
prestar atención suficiente
Those
en
who can
los
pay
siguientes
attention
minutos.
in the
Antes de
next
proseguir, quiero
minutes.
dejar
Before,
constancia
I would
que
like
yo
to say
estudié
that I studied
las tomografías de alta
the tomography
definición realizadas
of high definition
por 3 tomógrafos
by 3
y coinciden con el
tomographies,
cuerpo que yo
and they
examiné.
coincide
Incluso
with the
verifiqué las
body that I
ubicaciones de las
studied, and I
microextracciones
even
que se requirieron para los
compared
estudios.
it to
También
between studies,
verifiqué
and
si
I
el
also
cuerpo
verified
evaluado
if
corresponde
the
o no a
body
una entidad
corresponded or
biológica
not
descrita antes
to
sobre la
the
Tierra, y como ya se
biological
ha
entity
explicado,
that
no
was
hay
described.
evidencia de que
And
sea
there is no
producto de una
evidence that
evolución de
it
ninguna
is a
especie
product of
que
a
haya
evolution of
existido
any
en
species
algún momento,
that has
ni que
existed in any
exista
moment or
actualmente,
that exists
y
right
tampoco
now in
corresponde
the
a
earth, and it
ningún
does not
proceso
correspond
evolutivo
to any
filogenéticamente sobre este planeta.
phylogenetic evolution process in this earth. I dedicated a lot of hours that these images are truthful and they are not product of the human manufacture. The results are in the length of the length in average of these bodies are 60 centimeters if they are adult. Except one that we have named Josefina, that she has taken surgery. And they have confirmed that regarding the bones, well, I will show images next. What happened is, what we understand is the spinal cord and the doors of the hands are tilted towards the front. And they have 3 phalanges and 3 digits. That's why we call them pterodactyls. Homo sapiens, like this, the nail is over the last phalange. In this case, it's after. The neck is, they can move it, but only one axis. So they can only have movement up and down, but not from one side to the other. No, from one side to another, but not up and down. I am referring to the joint from the first vertebrae and the skull. The skull is also retractile, like the rest of the spinal cord, and what we call an abdomen. In the neck, there is no medullary channel, but there is a nervous system. We can verify the absence of a jaw, but they have a respiratory hole, and there's also a hole in the anterior part of the skull, and it goes through the frontal part to the anterior part of the neck. Unlike us, the Homo sapiens that have the skull, posterior part of it. These beings were always into legs, so they never use their anterior extremities to move, unlike us in our evolution. The eyes have not been manipulated in any way. The ribs are formed by 3 units, 2 lateral and 1 in the center, articulated. The last 2 ribs do not have the central part, and those are the floating ribs that are very close to the part where the eggs are. In the belly, there are the eggs in different states of development. This formation would be the most similar thing to the ovoviviparity in that state, and that they are eggs that would need supplement from the mother through blood vessels, and they all come from a placentary nucleus, and I will explain this tomography in some seconds. The paleogenetics that has been rewriting history. When it appeared, the technology of DNA for identification has changed everything. The paleogenetics have determined that it has not, that this body does not belong to any body of any known being. To put it frankly, we are more similar to a bacteria than these beings to anything else. So we could say that the hypothesis is that they just couldn't adapt to the current world. We could say that they are beings from other worlds. But I refer to another world that the paleontologists and archaeologists have told us. So it's time to reimagine history regarding all of these evidences that we have now found. I'm referring to paleogenetics, tomographies, and what I will describe with images in some minutes is a great disruptive element that for a lot of professionals, even the serious ones, they will respond with resistance and fear. I will present the images, please. The image. That is a video. Good. There you can see that the images, they have arrows that They are
indicando la zona
pointing
lateral
to the
del
lateral
arco
zone
anterior
of
de
the
las
anterior arc
costillas.
of the
Bien,
ribs.
dije que las costillas eran
You
tres
see,
partes,
the ribs, there
dos
are three
laterales y
parts,
una anterior.
two laterals
Es
and,
decir, tienen
and
costillas en
anterior.
toda
So
la
they
zona
have ribs
anterior.
in all the anterior parts.
Siguiente.
Next.
Si ven ahí las flechas
If you can see there,
verdes
the green
están
arrows,
señalando
they are
las costillas
signaling
flotantes.
the floating
Es decir,
ribs.
no tienen la
That
parte
means that
anterior.
they
La
do
flecha
not
roja que ustedes
have,
están viendo en
and
la
the
imagen
red
está señalando la
arrow that
ausencia
is
de
there,
la parte del
that
arco
signals the
anterior.
absence
¿Se
of
acuerdan? En la
the
parte
frontal arc of the ribs.
lo que nos queda de elementos nutricios complementarios que la madre da a los huevos. Pero tengo más ampliaciones sobre esto.
But I have
Se
more
van a sorprender.
amplification of this. You will be surprised. Next.
Bien. Ustedes
Okay,
van a ver ahí
so you can
con
see here
una
that
flecha
with
verde,
a green arrow,
una introducción
you
al
see an
huevo
introduction to the
en
egg
forma,
with
de
a
plexo.
form of plexus.
Van a ver en una
And you will
flecha,
see in a
celeste
blue arrow
otra forma de
another
un vaso
form
tortuoso que
of
da
a
a correr por
tortuous
detrás de
vessel
este huevo
that goes
y dos flechas
in the
rojas
back
que son
of the
fragmentos
egg, and two red
de
arrows that
entrada
are fragments
de vasos
of
alimenticios hacia esos huevos. Quiero decirles que
alimentary
usted,
tracts
si
to
usted
those
abre
eggs. So if you open
ese cuerpo, se
that
va
body,
a deshacer como si fuera
it is going
una
to dissolve like
ceniza
if
de un
it was
cigarrillo.
a
Porque así de
cigarette,
desecado
because
están estas
that's how
estructuras,
decayed
así
the
de
structures are.
delicadas.
That's how
Siguiente
delicate
imagen.
they are. Next image.
Este es solo un
This
acercamiento
is
de lo
just
que ya expliqué.
a zoom
Siguiente.
in to what I've just explained. Next one.
Esa es otra vista. de
That
lo que
is
expliqué.
another view of what I've just explained.
Siguiente.
Next.
Esta es una
This
son
is
estructuras que se encuentran
structures
en
that
la
are
parte- en la
found
superficie.
in the
Son una especie de
surface.
cuerpos
This is some
verrucosos,
kind
pero
of
que no tienen nada de
bodies,
verrugas,
but they
por
don't
favor.
really have
Son estructuras que también han sido estudiadas.
any kind of bone tissue. They have
Este es el
already studied them.
estudio
Next one.
histológico
This is the
de-
histologic
que es
study
queratina, por eso es
that
que
is keratin.
se parece
That's why it looks
análogo
like
a un reptil.
like a
Siguiente.
reptile. Next.
Esos serían como los tamaños.
These are
Si
like
ven,
the sizes.
están
As you can
señaladas
see,
con
they are
unas
signaled
letras.
with
El
letters.
más grande sería
The
el
bigger
adulto, el
one
intermedio,
would be
el
the
joven,
adult,
el-
the intermediate
los juveniles y los
would be
menores.
the juvenile and the minors.
Pero hay
But
también
there,
intermedios.
there's
Pero
also
esta es la clasificación
middle
que
ones.
en un
But this is
momento
the
les vamos a
classification that
decir
in a moment we
lo que
will tell you.
inicialmente pensamos. Siguiente.
But we have just come to with.
Le llamamos familia 1.
Next,
Siguiente,
we called it familia,
Familia
family
dos.
1, family 2,
y familia 3.
and family 3.
En realidad la familia 3 eran
In
los
family
más
3,
adultos,
they are
la
the
dos, los
most
intermedios de la
adult
familia
ones,
1, que se denominó
the
como
intermediates
los más
from
juveniles.
the
Y la
family
familia
1,
3, si se dan
which
cuenta
are
que
the
adultos tienen
family
una
1.
proyección
And
más
you can see that in the
puntiaguda
family
hacia
3, they have a more
Vamos a mostrar
angular
un caso
projection
sobre
towards the
mis adultos.
center.
Siguiente.
But, well, this is an adult one.
Esta es Victoria,
This
que
is
es
Victoria,
adulta.
who is an adult.
Y ven en la fúrcula, parte
And you can
interior,
see that in
la
the
punta,
interior part,
no
the
hay-
point,
no hay
there is
mucha proyección.
there isn't really a lot of
Bien,
projection.
Vamos a ampliar la zona
We're
de
going to
Victoria.
zoom in to
Siguiente.
the Victoria zone.
Miren,
Look,
esta,
this
quizá para el
is
que no es
probably,
especialista no se da
so
cuenta,
maybe the
pero
specialist did
ahí
not
hay
know,
osificación
but there is bone
cirugía. Es
post
decir, no
surgery.
es que solo le sacaron, sino
It doesn't mean
lo
that they
unieron
just
por alguna
took
patología que tuviera
bones, but
y se ha
they also
osificado otra
put
vez.
them together
Siguiente.
because of some pathology that she had, and
Bien, ahí
it was
vemos en el
attached
cuello,
together.
la parte roja que ven
We can
ustedes,
see that in the neck,
que
the red part
vamos a decir, baja por el cuello,
that goes
son
down
los
the
cordones
neck.
que van a
There are
formar
the
la
cords that
médula
will
espinal,
form
que comienza a
the
estructurarse
spinal
cuando hay un
cord
canal
that
raquídeo
will
que
start
comienza
to
en el
structure
tórax
when
y
there's
corre por el
a
cuerpo, en la
raquídeous
zona posterior.
channel
Siguiente.
in the posterior part. Next.
Esta, si,
This-
ahí es la imagen difícil de ver.
This is
Pero
a very
la
hard
parte
image to
de un
see,
lado
but
donde no está la pinza, sino
where
el
is
otro
not
lado,
to the opposite
esa
part
es
of where
parte del
the
cuello. Y un cuello que ya
panzers
estaba-
are.
ya estaba
This is
cortado.
the
Nosotros no hemos-
neck. So
nadie del
that
equipo
is
ha
already
descrito
that was
nada.
already cut. No,
Se-
nobody from the
se
team has destroyed
fragmentó
anything.
un cuello que ya
So
estaba
this
cortado
neck was
para
already
hacer las
cut
muestras
to make it.
ADN.
So we took DNA
Pero lo
samples
que
from
estoy,
there. But what I want
lo que estoy mostrando en una
to
pinza
show
sería
in
lo que
here
llamaríamos
is
una
what
vértebra.
we would call
Y
a
lo que está
vertebrae.
quedando visible medio más
And what is
amarillo sería un
showing,
cojinete
which is more
intervertebral,
yellow,
el cual
is
es
an
el cual se extiende
intervertebrae
espontáneamente y por eso el cuerpo es retráctil.
stuff.
Sí.
And it expands, and that's why the body is retractile.
Bien, no sé si lo logran ver.
I don't know if you can
en la
see
figurita de
in
abajo,
the
muestro
figure
lo que sería
below,
una columna
I can show what
vertebral
is
humana,
a human
la,
spinal cord,
donde hay pues los
where
cuerpos
there's
vertebrales
the
y
vertebral
los
bodies
cojinetes
and
o los discos intervertebrales.
the discs,
Vamos a pasar
the
en el
intervertebral
cuerpo,
discs. So you can see that in the body,
en la imagen,
in the image.
es una
that is-
tomografía, pero
it's a
está
tomography, but
dibujada.
it's
Se
drawn.
ven esos
You can see those
cuerpos
bodies
intervertebrales que en realidad son
that are in the
cojinetes,
vertebrae, that are like
y lo
the
que llamamos
discs.
esos delgaditos que ustedes
And
ven
what we
entre
call
los
those
cojinetes
thin ones
son
are,
las,
we can see between
serían
the
las
discs.
vértebras.
They would be the
Siguiente.
vertebrae. Next.
Bien. Felizmente ustedes el próximo año van a
So
tener
the
la
next
edición
year you
de ese
will
libro
have
que
this,
va a salir
the
primero
edition
para
of this
los
book
mexicanos estudiosos,
that
donde
will
resumen
be available
cerca de
first
las
to
miles de
the-
horas trabajadas
to
en su
the
hermoso
Mexican
país.
academics.
Pasemos a la siguiente presentación.
Let's go to the next presentation.
La siguiente.
Next one.
En el mismo USB hay otra
There
presentación.
in the USB, there's in the pen drive, there's
Mire,
another
le voy
presentation.
contando
Look,
que
I
lo que le voy a
will
mostrar
tell
es
you
que
that
la semana
what I will show you is that the past week
me dijeron si quería
I was told if
presenciar
I would want to give testimony
un cuerpo nuevo
a new body,
y que ese cuerpo nuevo le iban a
and
tomar
that this new
una
body, they
tomografía.
would take a tomography
Así
of
que
it.
les
So
comparto
I will
lo
share
que
with you
acabamos de ver,
what
que no
we've
está
just seen, that is not,
investigado más que
it's not really
lo de la semana
researched
pasada. Bien,
more than what
vamos.
just happened
Siguiente.
last week.
Bien, ahí
Okay,
está.
so we
Esta
can
es
see.
una fotografía.
There is a
Bien.
photography,
Vamos a ver otra.
so we can see another one.
Otra fotografía externa.
Another
Bien.
external photography, yes.
Más.
More?
La otra.
The other one?
Bien.
Good.
Suficiente. Ahora quiero
That's enough.
mostrarle
Now I
la
want to show
parte
you
tomográfica.
the tomographical
Bien.
part.
Por
Good.
favor,
Please.
voy a utilizar esa
I
misma
will
imagen,
use
pero le
that
voy a poner
very
flechas.
same image, but
Por
I
favor,
will
miren
use
bien la
arrows.
imagen
It's
para no
the same
perderse.
image,
Ahora vamos a ver la segunda con
just
flechas.
so you don't get
Las
lost.
flechas
Now the next with the
amarillas
arrows. The
serían
yellow arrows
las que están
would be
señalando la parte
would
superior de
signal
la
the
cavidad
superior part
oropharyngeal.
of the
Y las flechas rojas
oropharyngeus
serían
part, and
las que
the red
señalan la parte
arrows
inferior
would
de la
signal
cavidad
the
oropharyngeal.
inferior part of that same cavity.
Recuerden,
Remember,
la misma imagen, solamente que le hemos
it's the
puesto
same image,
flechas.
but we just put
Siguiente.
some arrows. Next one.
Bien. Ahora,
Good.
en la
Now,
parte,
in the
pequeña
part,
que
in
ven
the small
ahí,
part that you can
y
see
que
there,
hemos agrandado
we
en
have
un recuadro,
zoomed in
lo mismo
a
que
square
ustedes ven chiquito
what
y más
you can
grande.
see in
Lo que
smaller
están
but
viendo
bigger.
son
What you can see
unos-
is
unos huevos
some
que
eggs
tienen
that
una
have
estructura diferenciada, porque
a
tienen diferentes
differentiated structure
de
because
gestación.
they are in different states
en
of
blanco y negro,
development,
ahí lo pueden
and in
ver
black and white
muy
you can
bien.
see very
Y
good.
se ve con unas
And
flechitas
you can
que
see
voy a auxiliar
with
también.
some
Siguiente
arrows that I
imagen.
will use in the next
Las
image.
flechitas
Good.
son,
The
un auxilio porque no puedo tener
the
punteros,
arrows,
por supuesto.
I have them because I don't have any pointers, so that's why I
La
use them.
flecha
But
celeste
the
que ven ahí
blue
hacia
arrow that you
arriba
can
a
see
un
there in
costado
the upper part
estaría señalando
would signal
donde parten casi todos,
where
los
all
vasos.
the blood
Recuerden
vessels
que,
would part from.
eh,
Remember that
es la modalidad de hematotropía.
this is
Y,
dematotropy.
bueno, las otras flechas señalan
And the
cómo entran
other
los
arrows
vasos al
signal
cuerpo.
how
Siguiente.
the blood vessels entered to the egg. Next
Ahí
one.
terminé entonces.
There, that's it, apparently,
¿Ven
right?
el siguiente?
No, there's no next one? All right.
Eso fue todo. Muchísimas
Then
gracias
that
por
is
su
all.
atención.
Thank you very much,
Gracias.
all, for your attention, and thank you very much. I would like to apologize beforehand from the interpreters here.
Maestro, estos cuerpos
Master,
se
this,
pueden construir.
Mr. These
No,
bodies,
no hay
are
ninguna
they...
evidencia de
No,
intervención.
pero digamos que yo quiero
I
hacer
mean,
uno.
If
¿Lo
I
puedo
wanted
hacer?
to make one, can I make one?
Hay
Usted
tecnología.
ni nadie.
¿Eh?
Usted ni nadie.
You
porque,
can't do that.
There's no one
Con toda
because,
seriedad le digo,
with all seriousness, I can tell you that
hemos revisado con
we've
decenas de colegas radiólogos
we've
en mi país.
really taken this to a lot
Y
of
entonces,
radiologists in my
me
country,
diga, y
and they've told me,
¿qué tal si la
hey,
inteligencia
and
artificial
what if
podría
the
hacer las
AI
imágenes?
could
¿Qué
do
tal
these
si
images,
la
right?
inteligencia
What if the
artificial podría
AI
hacer imagen?
could make this
Pero
image? And
bueno,
what
podría, ¿no? Pero el
we tell
cuerpo
them is,
que
well,
estamos
maybe,
viendo,
but the body that we're
¿cómo lo
seeing,
hace? ¿No?
how can they
Y
do
además,
it?
obviamente,
How can you do that?
Hemos visto la
And
la
we have
tomográfica,
seen
¿no?
Yo le
the
escuché decir que
tomographies.
ni con millones de dólares se podría
I heard you
construir
say that
algo
not
así.
even with $1 million,
Porque,
someone could buy,
en realidad,
could build something
cuando
like this.
operamos,
Yes, why?
yo,
Because when we
bueno,
make
con la
surgery,
vista no se ve que también soy
for the audience,
cirujano y cirujano plástico,
I am
y
also a
hacemos
surgeon,
reconstrucción,
a
he
plastic
hecho
surgeon,
muchos
so
ámbitos de
we
cirugía,
make
mucha
reconstruction.
cirugía de mano.
I've made a
Estoy
lot
hablando del
of
siglo
hand
pasado,
surgery.
¿no?
I'm talking about last
Pero,
century.
siempre hay rasgos
But there's always, you can see tomographically, the bone manipulation. It's very obvious. And there has always been a contention fragment that I've used for the surgery, and there's no trace of that in these.
Other people are saying that this is built because all over the world they said that this case was solved, that it was demonstrated that these beings were made, they were manufactured.
Well, first of all, they extrapolated a doll that was very, very fake, very grotesquely fake, and in my theory, it's a very foolish extrapolation. It's not possible. No, it's not possible. So
whoever said that these are manufactured do not know what they are speaking about.
Yes, they are talking very unprofessionally. I'm not gonna say anything, but they want to make yellow press.
Here, I'm going to be a bit indiscreet. What happened to the bodies that the Ministry of Culture took away some weeks ago?
The Ministry of Culture sent them to the scientific research unit of the nation, and because they don't have a tomography, they can't do tomography. They can only cut, open, break, and to then make chemical trials and to report that they are the salts that their equipment can handle. So they destroyed the bodies. Well, they can't do another thing, doctor. They are incapable of doing something else.
And why did they do that?
I suppose that within their own vision, that maybe they would want active biological matter after thousands of years of desiccation. And you and the general public know that when an organic matter is desiccated and years pass, the carbon, the chump, the carbon that makes us, the carbon can stay as part of chemical molecules in the matter. But oxygen just goes to the air. It's oxygen. And nitrogen also goes to the air. In the majority of the structures, that's what's going to happen. And if it has more components that are salts, like the eggshell, well, more salt there's going to be.
And could they use these arguments to demonstrate that these are fake?
Definitely they're going to use that.
And they're going to say that they are dolls.
I can't say that they are bodies, that they don't have life. But I have demonstrated that the fine anatomy that I'm demonstrating with the entrance of the eggs, the plexus, that is irrefutable. And it's vital.
So you say that the bodies that you investigated were real?
Completely real, not fabricated, and there is no possible human.
So any effort on the other side is useless.
It damages all, because it really does damage to us all, because it avoids our development as a human society.
So the Ministry of Culture is acting against the people of Peru, not in the favor.
There's no culture in there at all, because what I would have thought is that they just said that the university in which the university does research, but what it's done is that they made a research process to the researchers, so they don't let them research. So we are upside down, right? So it looks like the third world is pulling us.
Thanks a lot, mister. Well, now we're having Dr. Celestino Priotti, who is going to be having one of the greatest researchers that we've had in Argentina. There's species that have his name, a true scientist
y nos va a hacer revelaciones
and he's going to
extraordinarias.
give us some
Adelante,
revelations,
doctor
some extraordinary revelations.
Thank you very much.
Buenas tardes a todos.
Good afternoon to all.
everybody.
Voy a ser muy breve.
I will be very
Lo que
brief
voy
in
a
what I'm
contar,
about
voy
to
a
tell
relatar.
you and what I will
Y luego,
talk about. And then
voy a compartir con ustedes
I will
el
share with you
resultado
the results
de lo que yo
of
investigué
what I have
en
researched
estos casos
in these cases
de la momia de Nazca.
of the Nazca investigated bodies.
Siempre quiero aclarar
I've always wanted
que,
to make clear
yo partí la investigación mía
that I
estrictamente
started
desde
this
el método
investigation of mine
científico aplicado
strictly
a
from
la
the
ciencia
scientific
médica.
method
O sea,
method
el
applied
método
to the
científico, en
medical
donde yo no
sciences.
tengo ninguna
This
chance de
scientific method,
variar los
I did
resultados
not have
que
any
me dan,
chance to,
que
so
son
I have not
resultados
had
puramente
any chance to
matemáticos
change
y no
these
son
results
subjetivos,
because they're
ni que
purely
me gusten o no
mathematical
me gusten,
and they're not just and
simplemente
they're
me
subjective.
tengo que acatar
It's not because I
al
like them
método
or I don't.
científico.
I am simply following the
Entonces,
scientific
recurrí
method.
a
So
radiografías
I
de
have
cráneo,
used
de perfil,
cranium radiographies.
las amplié
I've
y
amplified them and
dentro de
introduced
ellas
inside
una
them
serie de
a
ángulos,
series of
de
angles,
triángulos,
of
de
triangles,
polígonos,
of polygons,
de rectas,
and of lines,
posterior, etcétera, y las medí.
and I measured them.
El resultado me dio
The results were
una respuesta puramente
were
aritmética. Me
arithmetic.
dieron números.
They were purely arithmetic. They gave me numbers.
Luego de eso,
Now, after that,
fui a
I
medidas que yo tenía guardado de la
went to
época en que
measurements
presenté mi tesis
I
en el año
had
2001,
when in
en
2001
donde
I presented my
pude
thesis,
demostrar
where I was able to
que
demonstrate
existen una
that
serie de dimorfismos sexuales
there was a
distintos
series
en el
of
hombre y la mujer
dimorphisms
a partir de,
in the woman and in man and woman,
del húmero
starting
y
from
del
bones,
sacro,
depending
que son
from
distintos en el
the
hombre y la
humerus
mujer.
and the
Entonces,
sacrum,
esos índices
different in the woman,
que
in the man and
yo
woman.
los tenía guardados de mi
So
tesis,
in
los comparé
those,
con estos,
so from
y
those index that I had
me
in my
dio
thesis,
algo muy
I
curioso,
compared
que
them to
fue
these ones,
no
and they
una
gave me
cosa
some very
totalmente
interesting results,
opuesta de
which
uno
was
a
that
otro,
they
del
were
ser
not
humano a estas
completely
series que no
inverse.
conocemos, sino una zona muy cercana
They
a
were
ellos.
they were very
Entonces,
close to them.
Si ustedes tienen una escalera
However,
en donde
if
le
we
quieren
have
agregar
a
un
ladder
escalón más,
where we want to add
los
another
resultados de
ladder,
estos seres me
the
daban
results of
perfectamente
these
que yo
beings
agregaba un escalón
gave
más
me
a la escala
another one that I
evolutiva
could
del hombre.
add another ladder to the
Entonces,
evolution ladder that of mankind.
Lo comparé también con
So I compared them
una
as well with
teoría de la evolución
a theory of
que yo
evolution
hice
that I
opuesta a
made
la de Darwin,
opposed to
y que le
Darwin's,
llamé la teoría del guardián.
and that I called it
En
the
el año
Guardian's
1980,
theory in 1980,
Entonces me dieron los mismos resultados.
and it gave me the same results.
Luego de eso,
After
pude
that,
determinar entonces
I was
hasta
able
qué
to
tipo de
determine
cerebro habrían
that
tenido
even
estas
what
personas,
kind
y ya las voy
brain
llamando personas.
this
¿Por
kind of
qué?
people would have. And I'm calling them people.
Porque
Why? Because
el resultado final
the
numérico
final
que me da
results of
es
the
que
final numerical results
no
of this
son
is that
individuos
they're
del
not
pasado ni
they're
del
not
presente, sino son del
they're not
futuro.
individuals that come from the
Entonces, quiere
past
decir
or from the present.
que
They're
estos dos
from the
seres,
future.
María
So it means
y
that these
estos seres
these
de
two
60
beings,
centímetros de altura,
Maria and these
deberían haber
two
existido
60
en el
centimeter
futuro
beings,
y no en el pasado
should have existed in the
hace 1000
future
años o 1700
and not in the
años de
past
diferencia.
1,000 years ago
El método científico
or so.
no me puede contestar.
The
por lo
scientific
tanto, yo
method cannot
tampoco puedo
answer to me.
hacerlo.
Therefore, I
¿Por qué
cannot
aparecen en
do
el
it
pasado
either.
y no tienen
Why
que
do they
aparecer en el
why do
futuro?
they appear in the
Cuando
past
la
and not the
especie
future?
humana nuestra actual
When
esté desapareciendo.
the
Y
when
María sería
when our actual human
el
species is
eslabón
disappearing,
último de la
Maria
especie
looks
humana
to be
nuestra
the
que va
last
evolucionando hacia
chain,
una especie nueva.
the last
Por
chain
lo tanto,
of
María
humanity
tendría
that
parte
devolves
de
into
su
another
genética
species,
humana
which
y
means
parte
that
de una
Maria
genética
would have
distinta.
part of our human
En
genetics
cambio,
and
los
part
seres
of
más
our
bajos
different
serían
genetics.
totalmente de una
Meanwhile,
evolución de una
the
especie que va a venir después
more
de nosotros.
shorter beings look like an
Resumiendo,
evolution that should
serían
come after us,
nuestros descendientes.
meaning that shortly they should be our
Esto yo lo dejo
descendants.
aquí.
This is
No
what
quiero
I'm
seguir
saying
hablando.
here.
Quiero
I'm
que
not
lo
going to
compartan
continue
conmigo y
speaking.
que piensen
I
muy bien lo
want
que yo les
to
acabo de
think
decir.
about this with me.
Nada más.
That's it.
Doctor,
Dr. Piotti.
lo que usted nos está
So what you're
diciendo
saying is that
es que si usted proyecta
this-
la evolución del ser humano hacia el futuro,
to the future,
nosotros probablemente,
we would
de acuerdo a lo
probably,
que
according to what
platicamos, en
we
unos
have
3
discussed,
millones de
in
años,
some 3 millions of
podemos
years,
llegar a ser
would you be able
parecidos a
to
esos
be
seres.
similar
Es posible.
to this?
it's
Mire,
possible.
le pongo un
You
ejemplo.
see,
¿Cómo podrá ser
How-
la tierra enemiga del hombre en ese momento?
How could the earth
Que estos
be
seres bajitos,
as
como yo
against
llamo,
the man as
llegan
a man,
a tener el
that
cuerpo
this
que ya no
these
les
little
sirve más
beings
para sobrevivir.
looks so little
Un
that
cuerpo
it
que es
doesn't
inútil.
really
No
it
puede
is it's
caminar,
kind of
no
useless.
puede
It can't even
tomar
walk.
las cosas
It
con
can't even
mano.
it can't even take stuff
Entonces,
with its hands.
frente al mundo, si el cuerpo no le
Facing the
sirve,
world,
está en
if
extinción
this
también.
world
Pero
doesn't
¿qué es lo que hace?
it doesn't have a
Desarrolla
function,
el cerebro
then what does it
mucho
do?
más para
It develops
manejar
the
todo con el
brain
cerebro.
to be able to
O sea, estos
handle
seres
everything with the
pequeños
brain.
Even though they're small,
tienen proporcionalmente
they
un
are
cerebro más grande que
proportionally,
nosotros.
they have
En
proportionally
proporción
bigger
tienen un
brain.
cerebro mucho más grande
In
que
proportion, they have
nosotros
a
con
much
respecto
bigger
a
brain
nuestro
than we
cuerpo.
do, with proportion with
Cuanto
our
más
body.
chico el cuerpo de ellos, se les va agrandando más el cerebro.
More
O sea que se
the smaller the
potencia mucho
body,
más.
the bigger
Fíjese
the
una
brain
cosa.
for them.
Yo
You see,
hice una proyección de
I made a
lo que se
projection
llama
of what
el
is
polígono
called
de Class.
the
que era un
class
polígono
polygon,
que se usaba en
which was a
1850
polygon used in
en la Sociedad de
1950 in
de París,
in the
con Paul
Anthropology
Broca,
Society
que fue el
of
fundador.
Paris.
Divido la cavidad craneana en 4 partes.
He
Mirá,
divided
la parte
the cranium in 4
anterosuperior,
parts,
lóbulo frontal,
the
huidizo, o sea,
superior
no
part
frontal como
and the
nosotros,
frontal
sino
part, and
caído
made
hacia
it
atrás, como los monos
and like
del
almost
viejo
like
mundo,
falling
o
back,
los monos africanos,
almost like
o los
monkeys
monos
or-
de Australopithecus, ¿no es cierto?
or the
Pero
Australopithecus.
sin embargo,
However,
lo que podría ser una falta de desarrollo
what
del lóbulo
could be
frontal,
a
lo
lack
tiene
of
ensanchado para los
development
costados.
in the
Quiere decir que se ha
frontal globe,
ensanchado
it has
hacia los
it
costados del
by the
cerebro
sides.
porque
It means that the
necesitaba
sides of the
crecer más
brain
en la
have
cavidad
developed
craneana.
because
Luego
they
me
needed
da
to grow
una base
more.
cerebral, que en el ser
They
humano
also
no
give me
cambia
a
casi nunca la
cerebral
base del
place.
cráneo. Es lo que menos se
In the
mueve
human
en la
being,
evolución
it
humana.
doesn't really
Y sin
change the
embargo,
base
nos da
of the
una
skull.
cavidad en la hipófisis
And yet,
mucho más
it gives us
grande
a
que la
cavity in the
nuestra, lo
hypophysis,
cual significa
which is much
una
bigger than
gran
ours,
actividad
which means
hormonal.
that it has a great
luego nos da la parte
amount of
posterior
hormonal
del
activity.
cráneo,
And it
una
also
gran
gives us
actividad
the
del
back
cerebelo
part of
del
the skull,
equilibrio. ¿Por qué?
which
Porque
gives
no
us
pueden caminar,
equilibrium.
porque los tres
But
dedos esos
these
le impiden
beings can't
caminar y
walk.
desplazarse,
These
y las
little
manos
feet,
le
these
impiden tomar
little,
las cosas.
these little feet
Entonces,
cannot walk, and
solo
these
con
hands
medidas
cannot
y
take
ángulos
stuff.
numéricos
So only with
que se pueden
numerical
medir, se pueden
angles
demostrar,
and
porque
measurements,
2 más 2 es
I
4 y
can
no es 10,
I can
y no es
demonstrate,
5,
which is
sino
like
2 más
why
2 es
1
4,
plus 1 is 2.
podemos ver
It's not
cómo
4,
ha
it's not
crecido
5.
estos seres para poder
With this
sobrevivir.
numerical data, we
Y
can
son
see
los
how
descendientes nuestros.
how these beings change
O sea,
to survive.
Tiene que haber llegado de otro lugar.
do you think that they have come from another place?
Yo creo que
I think
siguiendo la
that
teoría de la evolución
following
del
the
hombre a
theory
partir
of
del
evolution
Pithecus
from
africano,
the man, about man,
me parece que
starting from the Australopithecus,
se dio un fenómeno muy especial en esa época.
I
hace
think
3
it
millones
was
de
a
años,
very interesting
en donde
phenomena 3,000 years
de
ago,
repente de los Pithecus estos,
where suddenly
del
from
Pithecus
this
este
Pithecus,
empezó a heredar
they
hijos,
started
monos
to
y hombres.
give.
Entonces, no
They
se
started to
explica,
have a
y yo no
legacy
creo
of
que el
monkey
Pithecus sea tan capacitado
sons and men.
genéticamente como para dar hijos monos y hombres.
It wasn't that
Tiene que
big
haber
of a
sido ayudado por
It
un
should
ser
have been
que yo
helped
le
by
llamo ser
someone
anterior,
that I call
mucho más
the
evolucionado que él,
the
que le da
beforehand
la parte
being,
humana.
who
Por
was
sí solo no
so
podría-
much more
podría
evolved
haber pasado.
that gives him the human
Well, this is
Por
revolutionary,
eso
doctor.
solo no podría
This is
haber
why
Pithecus haber
the Pithecus
evolucionado
shouldn't have
3 millones
evolved
de años
3,000
y que
years,
sigamos nosotros
3,000
siendo
millions
iguales
of
como
years.
somos.
We should
Algo
have
tendría que
been,
haber fallado,
we sh-
ya tendríamos que haber desaparecido
we
nosotros.
should have already disappeared.
Y no desaparecemos por ese ser
O sea,
anterior que le da
and-
la genética que le faltaba
And
al
this
Pithecus.
superior being gives genetics
So
to these other
apparently,
Pithecus.
there exists some kind of creation,
De creación artificial.
of artificial creation.
No es
No,
creación
no,
artificial, es
not
creación
artificial
natural.
creation. It's
Natural
natural
del hombre.
creation.
Es la especie humana.
Natural
Alguien
creation.
la-
It's the
la
human
llevó a
species.
Somebody
Ese ser
uh,
superior.
took it apart, this superior
Yo diría
being.
que Dios.
I would say God.
¿Está bien?
Well, okay.
El ser superior
This superior
es
being
mandado por Dios.
is
¿eh?
sent
Es
by
una
God.
persona o otro ser que tiene cierta capacidad genética que no la tiene el
This
Pithecus,
being that has
y
a
por lo
genetic
tanto,
capacity
le
that
permite
Pithecus
al
doesn't have.
Pithecus
And
dar
so it
hijos
allows the
monos y
Pithecus
luego dar
to
hombres.
give birth to
Y se divide,
monkeys,
y
to
llega
monkey
a la
children, and yet
actualidad, y el
also
hombre
men.
es hombre y el mono el mono que conocemos nosotros.
And
Y
yet,
luego están estos seres
And then there's these
que seremos
beings
nosotros
that
en 3 millones de
we
años.
will be in 3 million of years.
No sé.
I
Ahí
don't
yo no puedo
know.
contestar
I
porque
cannot
el método
answer
científico no me
because
permite.
the scientific method does not allow me to go that far.
Una pregunta más.
One last
Usted
question.
me comentó la
You
primera
commented
vez que hablé
me
con
the
usted,
first time that I talked
quien
with you
dijera que estos
that who said that
cuerpos
these bodies
eran armados,
were
era un criminal.
manufactured was a criminal.
Bueno, lo que yo
Well,
le dije fue lo
what I mean
siguiente.
is
La persona que
the
critica
person who
sin
critiques
tener un método científico
without having a
y sin
scientific
tener un
method
poco de conocimiento
and without
como
having
para
any bit of
oponer
knowledge to
otro
oppose
conocimiento y
this
crear una
knowledge
ciencia en base a
and
la
create more
crítica y la
science
crítica
based
del
on
método
critique,
que presenta,
based on the
es una
method they're
persona que es
presenting,
sumamente
then
dañina,
this person is
porque no solo no
extremely
tiene
harmful
conocimiento,
because not
sino
only
que
do they not have knowledge,
evita que los pueblos,
they also
crezcan
stop
y
other
conozcan. Y los
still
pueblos
stop
que no
people
conocen
from
llegan a
growing,
hacer guerras.
from knowing, and the people who
Entonces, para evitar
do
todas
know
esas cosas hay que
end up in
estudiar.
wars.
Y
That's
estudiar
why
en
we need to
conjunto
study,
todo
and
y
that's
crecer
why
en
we need to
esa forma.
study
¿Le
together.
parece importante
Do
investigar
you
a
think
estos
it's
seres?
important to research these
Por supuesto, yo
beings?
creo que esto
I
tiene
find
que
it
seguir
extremely
porque
important
son
to
seres biológicos
study these biological
que,
beings
no han vivido,
who have
no viven,
who
sino que van a
are
vivir.
not who
Y
did not
queremos
live,
ver qué
who are not
le
alive,
vamos a
who will
dejar
live,
nosotros a ellos,
and
qué mundo le dejamos nosotros.
we should know what kind of world we're leaving to these
Muchísimas
beings.
gracias, maestro.
Thanks a lot.
Bueno, ahora vamos con los
Well, now
maestros de la
we'll
Universidad
continue
de
with the Masters of
el Dr.
ICA
Roger
University,
Zúñiga, quien ha
Dr. Roger
encabezado
Zúñiga,
la
who has
investigación
led
de esta
the
universidad
research
los
of
últimos
this
4
university
años.
the last 4
Hay que
years.
hacer un reconocimiento muy
We'll
especial
have
al
to
Dr.
make a very
Zúñiga.
special recognition
Él ha
to
pagado
Dr.
con su
Zúñiga.
dinero las
He has paid with his
investigaciones,
own money,
ha
from his
recurrido
own
a
pocket,
amigos,
this research.
hecho todo
He has
lo
gone
posible.
to friends and he has
A
done
cambio,
everything that's
ha
possible.
recibido una
And
oposición
in
férrea,
change, he has received
especialmente del
a
Ministerio de
very
Cultura.
strong opposition, especially from the
Incluso lo han
culture
acusado,
Minister of Culture.
acusado
And he is accused legally
por estar realizando esta
for
investigación.
being
En este momento,
doing this research. In this
el lugar
moment,
donde se encuentra
the place where
la momia María está
where
cerrado por la-
Maria Mummy
y
is
les impide
encountered
continuar
is closed,
esa investigación por
and
parte del
they
Ministerio de
they are not
Cultura.
allowing
Adelante,
them to
Dr.
continue
Roy.
this research. Go ahead, doctor.
Señores y señoras,
Ladies and gentlemen,
muy buenas tardes.
very good afternoon.
Tengo el
I
altísimo
have
honor
the
de
great
participar
honor of participating
evento.
in this event.
Gracias a la
Thanks
invitación
to the invitation,
gentil
the very kind
del
invitation of
diputado Sergio
the Deputy
Gutiérrez
Sergio Gutierrez
Luna. Le agradezco a él,
I thank him
a todos los miembros
and every member
del Congreso
of the
y al
Congress
pueblo
and the people
mexicano
of
que nos da la
Mexico
oportunidad
that is giving us the
para decir
opportunity
nuestra verdad.
to tell our truth.
Asimismo, saludo a los
The
dos
same way
congresistas de mi
I
país
greet the 2 congressmen from my country that are right now, right here in
Como
this
dijo el
chamber.
doctor Maussan,
As Mr. Masson said, this job that we have done has been a very, very hard work with all the opposition and the limitations that has been and still are in my
pero
country.
antes de
But before
hacer mi exposición,
doing my presentation,
quiero
I want
comunicarles
to communicate to you
el saludo
the greeting,
efusivo, ferviente,
very
amigo
intense,
del rector de la
of
Universidad San
friendly
Luis Gonzaga de Ica,
of the rector of the
Dr. Jorge
university,
Moreno
Dr. Jorge Moreno,
Alegua,
rector of the university,
quien en estos
who,
momentos
in these
nos
moments,
está dando todo el apoyo.
he is giving us all his support.
El saludo
And of course, the
de
greetings
los vicerrectores,
of the vice
decanos,
rectors of
de el Consejo
the
Universitario,
University
los docentes de la
Council,
universidad,
and
los
the
no
teachers
docentes
of
de
the
la universidad,
university,
los estudiantes
the students of
de la
the
comunidad
university,
universitaria
of the
y del
university
pueblo
community,
de Nazca
and
y
from
Palpa.
the people of Nazca and
Así
Palpa.
que reciban
So,
ustedes el saludo de
receive
todos
all of
ellos.
you the greetings of all of
Bien.
them. And
nosotros recibimos, puede pasar
we
por favor,
received, could
la
you
imagen?
put
Nosotros
the image,
recibimos
please? We
el
received
día
the day
primero
1st of
de
August of
del
2019,
2019, ¿no? 4 cuerpos,
4 bodies,
como ya dijeron, de un
as they have already
periodista,
said, from a
¿no?
journalist
reservándose el derecho a
who
no
had the right
dar
to not give
información
any
de su
information
fuente. A
about
partir
their
de esta
source.
época empezamos nosotros
From this time,
con
we
incredulidad, por
started,
supuesto,
of course,
a
with
realizar
incredulity,
Recording
with
in
skepticism,
las primeras
to realize
investigaciones
to
la
to realize the
toma
first
de
research with
radiográficas,
radiographic
colaboración,
samples,
¿no?
thanks to the
de
collaboration
un
of
gran
a great
médico, un gran
medic,
maestro,
a great
que toda su vida
expert that all his
dedicado,
life has
¿no? a la
dedicated
radiografía, me
to the
refiero al
radiography,
Dr. Mendoza
and I am
Elizabeth.
talking about Dr. Mendoza.
Estas primeras imágenes
These first
nos
images
dieron como
have
resultado
given
de
us
que
as a result
estos
that
cuerpos
these
eran-
bodies
tenían indicios de ser reales.
had the potential of being real, and to
acudiendo a
make
nuestro propio
further research
peculio
and going through our
de
own
los investigadores que conformábamos el equipo de
researchers
la universidad,
and the team of the university, right?
llevamos a Lima
We
al
took to
estudio
Lima
Quito para realizar
this study to
las
make
tomografías.
the tomographies.
Bueno, la lectura de las tomografías
And the
nos
readings of the
confirmaron
lectures confirmed
que se trataba de
that
cuerpos,
they were
¿no?
authentic
auténticos.
bodies.
Bien. Sin
Good.
embargo, recibimos
Nevertheless, we
una serie de
received
críticas.
a series
Nos
of
dijeron
criticisms.
que estos cuerpos
They told
eran
us that
armados,
these bodies were
¿no? Con
armed,
cabeza de
they were
llama.
manufactured,
Ustedes habrán
that they
escuchado alguna
had
vez decir esto,
llama,
¿no?
the head of a llama,
Con huesos de niños y aves.
that they had bones
Era
of birds and
prácticamente un
children,
Frankenstein.
that it was basically a Frankenstein's monster.
Entonces, recurrimos
And
a la siguiente
so
fase de la
we
investigación.
went to
Puede
the
pasar,
next phase of
por favor.
the research. Could you please put the next image?
De toda la parte
Of all the
superior,
part of all the
superficial del
superior
cuerpo,
parts and
y no
superficial
encontramos
of the
absolutamente
body, we did not find
ningún signo
any
de haber sido
sign
manipulado. No
for
hay
them to be
junturas, no hay
manipulated.
suturas,
There is no sutures,
absolutamente
there is no
nada,
junctures,
¿no?
there is
El
nothing.
cuerpo es normal,
The body
la
is normal,
piel es
the skin
completamente,
is completely
real,
real,
¿no?
right?
Y más
And
bien nos dimos cuenta de que el cuerpo
we noticed
era
that the
queratinizado,
body
¿no?
was
Como de los reptiles.
keratinized
Nos
like the
dimos cuenta
reptiles.
que
And
la
we
cabeza
noticed that the
igualmente
head,
alargada, como ustedes habrán visto,
elongated,
no
as you
tiene
can see,
pabellón
did not
auricular,
have
no tiene
ears.
cabellera,
They didn't
¿no?
have hair.
Los ojos son
The eyes
demasiadamente grandes para la
were
cara,
way
el
too
tabique
big
nasal
for the
pequeño,
face.
una
Nose
boca
was
pequeña,
very small,
¿no?
a very small mouth
Y luego,
too. And
toda la
then,
estructura del cuerpo
on the structure of the body,
completamente
was completely
escuálido,
thin,
que termina
very, very
en
thin,
4
that
extremidades con
culminated
3
in
dedos,
4 extremities
¿no?
with 3
en
digits,
cada
3 fingers
extremidad.
in
¿Puede pasar
every
la imagen?
extremity. Could you please put the image?
Está
Good.
opaco, este no se nota bien.
This one is
Bien.
not good.
Entonces, para
Okay,
descartar la
so
posibilidad
to
de que
discard the
estos
possibility
cuerpos
that
habían
these
sido
bodies
armados,
were manufactured,
tomamos las muestras,
we
pueden ver
took the
ustedes la
samples
cabeza,
after you can see the
sacamos la
skull,
muestra
the
de la
head.
cabeza,
We took the sample from the
y
head,
luego,
and then
nos
we
dimos cuenta que en el
we
momento de
noticed that
sacar
at the
la
moment
muestra de la
of
cabeza
taking
para
the
ver
sample
si
out
era
of the
de llama
head
o
to
no,
see if it was
había
real or not,
algo que se movía
we saw
dentro
something
del
that was
cerebro de
moving
la-
inside
de la
of
bóveda
the
craneana,
skull.
y
And
aproximamos hacia esa
we
ventana que
thought
ustedes pueden
to
ver
that
en la figura
window
3,
that you can see in the
¿no?
figure
Y
3,
encontramos
right?
un
And we
cuerpo
found a
raro
body,
que parecía,
a
no
rare
ser
body
cefálico.
that looked like it
Sacamos una
was
muestra pequeña de
encephalous.
esta,
We took a small
y
sample
luego
from it,
enviamos a
and then we
México,
sent it to
en
Mexico.
los laboratorios de
That
México
in the
han
laboratories
llegado
in
a la
Mexico
conclusión de que
have concluded
son
that they
tejidos
are
que
tissues
no
that
corresponden
do not
al tejido
correspond
óseo al cerebro humano,
to the
tampoco de
human
otros
brain
animales.
nor any other
Estamos
animal.
tratando de averiguar
We are
a qué
trying to
animal
find
podría
which
corresponder.
animal it could
Bien,
belong
puede
to.
pasar.
Good, you can go to the next slide.
Igualmente, sacamos la muestra del,
Similarly,
de la
we
parte
took
del-
the
del
sample
tórax,
from
¿no?
the
del
thorax part,
costal
from
derecho,
the
y
right
verán
side,
ustedes en las
and you can
imágenes,
see in the
en la imagen
images,
número uno,
the image number
que,
1, that
al cortar esa parte,
cutting that part,
encontramos
you
un
can
órgano,
find an organ,
al parecer hígado. Y pueden ver
apparently
ustedes
a
el
liver.
color.
You can see the
Igualmente
color.
se sacó una muestra, esa
It's
está en
also a
análisis
sample.
todavía.
That one, we took a sample from that one, which is still in analysis. And with this one, we noticed that these beings had encephalous matter and that they had internal organs. So the question is, what kind of person would take the initiative or the bravery to manufacture this kind of bodies with internal organs? It's not possible. All these organs would decay because of a lot of factors. On the right side, we also made some cuts. We took some samples, and these 3 samples from the head, from the thorax, and from the femur, we sent it to another university, a very prestigious university in Peru, the University of Engineering, that have very good equipment and facilities, to see if these elements or these samples belong to different beings. The results, the biochemical results, gave that the samples belonged to the same individual. This gives us the basis and the ground to say that these beings, to discard the hypothesis that these beings were manufactured. Similarly, we went to another specimen called Luisa. This specimen is characterized because she has eggs, unlike the other ones. We think that she was a female in reproduction, with voluminous belly, and that has been visualized. 3 objects that looked like an egg. And the oppositor said that they were stones that were introduced into the belly of the doll. To discard this possibility, we also took some samples. We took the samples firstly, and then we did a hole with the devices that the ornithologists use. We took the samples, and you can see that we took the samples and we sent to the engineering university to see if they were effectively elements that weren't organic or animal. So, similarly, the analysis that the results that we're giving say that these are biological elements. So, discarded completely the hypothesis that they are stones, rocks, and they are eggs. You can see in the second image the radiography that was taken of the X-rays. In this incrustation with that needle, injectable, that was introduced in the egg, as you can see. Another image. There you can see the image, the frontal image of the eggs, and also a lateral image of the eggs. And there you can see even some kind of fiber or something that is in the belly that sustains or gives base to the eggs. Next image. And there you can also observe very clearly some tomographic reading, and when the tomographic cut was made, we found in the eggs actual fetus and embryons. Like it was in full reproductive development at the moment of its death. There we have Victoria, who is sitting down. The specimen is headless, and we have the tomography. But what I'm trying to demonstrate is this: for a very special situation, and very what can I say? Surprising. We will go to the next image. Here you can see a being. This is a wari textile. The wari is a Peruvian society that lives in the medium horizon. And it's a society that it's very imperialistic. And in the iconography of this culture, that is a wari, it's a textile that they had, and that I took a photo of. There you can see that this being is tridactyle. It has very big eyes, with a head that looks like it's in pain. We have the hands, they have up and in a V position, and it is sitting down. But the most curious thing is that apparently the cloaca is open, and it looks like an object is falling, which looks like a creature, a being. You can even see in the stomach there is something that looks like an egg, which would demonstrate that these beings were beings that reproduced through the egg, and they were beings that gave birth to the egg, but inside the belly, it was developed inside the belly, and it hatched inside the belly, and the living things just come out. Now here, this is a different textile with the same characteristics of this textile. Here, for some reason, you can see the images. What I wanted to show you was the textile. But these images, what I wanted to say, because it's not being shown, that the females had a plate in the chest. This metallic plate has a very interesting situation. Because all the females have these. I don't know why. We made a cut. We took a sample from this mineral. We sent it to the engineering university, which is a university that has a lot of experience and a lot of work done. And they have very high fidelity equipment. And that the studies were made in these, and 3 minerals were discovered. One, copper, from estaño. And this shows that they made the bronze, and then a third element, which is the osmium. The osmium, you know, that has been discovered in 1803. This practice until the era of communications, right? The osmium is a mineral which is very expensive and very, very rare in the world. And it's impossible that any person was able to use osmium to falsify this doll or any artifact of this nature. Why? Because its composition is very... it's very, very, very hard to get, and it's extremely expensive. And the artifact that these beings have in the chest, right? They have some series of ancient fibers, and they have 2 parallel plates. There's a series of what can I say? Some sort of circuits that looks like it's a very special artifact. And I asked to the analyst of this mineral, and he said, for what this artifact, I asked what this was for, and he said, probably for the localization, if not, communication. So, well, the time has gotten over me, and we have a bunch of iconographical evidence, not even in Peru, not only in Peru, but in the rest of America, that represent these beings, these tridactyl beings, with the characteristics that have these beings that are in the university. Thank you very much.
Dr. Roger
Zúñiga, it's very clear that to you there's no doubt that these bodies are absolutely real.
Yes, absolutely. We are sure, not only I, but the 11 teachers that have been dedicated to this research, and the vast majority of them are medics, and they vow for their veracity. And I brought to this meeting the written declaration statement of the 11 researchers of the university, a statement that for the world to know that we are in front of a bunch of very real beings, and we ask the global scientific community, the universities, the particular or private scientists to take part of this research process to get to the truth, and also to all of those who are in a position to demonstrate with evidence that these bodies are falsified.
So you say that you're opening the doors of the university to any other university in the world that is capable of doing this research?
To anyone and with open arms. Even if the university is small and modest, with a great heart, if they want to know the truth, I'm going to hand in to the deputy, Sergio, this statement so that it can be shared to the world.
Gracias, doctor. Recibo de usted y de la
Thanks, doctor. I receive from you and from the National University San Luis Gonzaga ICA from Peru this declaration that speaks about the desiccated bodies from Nazca. It's signed
por las autoridades
by
de la
these
universidad.
authorities, by these university authorities.
Y próximamente nosotros los estaremos
And
visitando. Vamos a animarnos a
soon enough,
visitarlos por allá.
we'll be able to visit them. Thank you very much, doctor.
One last, Dr. Zúñiga, one last question. You don't just open the university to the academic institutions. Does it exist any kind of solicitude to the people or to the institutions that want to support with economical resources, because you really work with a really tight budget. So would it help that the people that would...
It would be so helpful. It would be so helpful to furthering knowledge.
How can they contact you? Can you give us some email?
Well, yeah, here I have a card.
No, you just say it, please.
Okay, so my mail is Roger Sua. Roger Sua 1618 at gmail.com.
rogersua1618@gmail.com.
Exactamente. Bien, muchísimas gracias.
Muchas gracias a usted.
Thank you.
Bueno, quiero aquí presentar, vamos a continuar con los académicos, nada más una carta.
We're going to continue with the academics here, this letter, because here the Polytechnical Institute here in Mexico has joined this investigation, has tried to participate, and they made us to speak this favor of analyzing the metal at from this female whose name is Clara, and they analyzed the metal in her chest. I will present to you now the results. The results from the Dr. Mesa, doctor in science,
del Instituto Politécnico
who is one of the
Nacional,
doctors in
que
the
avala esta investigación
Polytechnical
y
Institute
cuya interpretación
and who
yo
verifies
se
this
la
research.
solicité al maestro
And so
Fernando
I also
y
requested
en base a ello,
the
aquí se
Master
las presento.
Fernando
Es muy breve.
Estrada
Adelante, por favor.
to present here. Please, go ahead.
El día 25 de octubre
The
del año
day
en curso, se
25
llevó a cabo
of
el
October
análisis
of
por
the
microscopía
current
electrónica
year,
de barrido,
there was an
MET, en
analysis
los
in
laboratorios de
a
ingeniería y
study
metalurgia y
in
materiales
the
del Instituto Politécnico
IPN's
Nacional, a uno de los
facilities
cuerpos no humanos.
to one of the non-human bodies.
La placa analizada
The
está
plate, the
constituida
analyzed
en su
plate
mayoría
is
por
made
plata
in
y
its
tiene
majority
vestigios de
by
otros
silver, and it
metales.
has
Eso
traces
abre
of other
dos
metals.
teorías.
That opens up two theories.
Primero,
Firstly,
teoría metalúrgica.
metallurgical theory. The silver is a metal that in ancient times it was very hard to get, and if we're talking about an age of 1,000 years, it's very hard to think about highly pure silver, which indicates that one, it must have been realized by an intelligent being. Two, it would have need to have done with technology that would be beyond any kind of technology that from back then. Three, the fact that there's a plate inside of these beings, it would imply a very advanced technological function, apart from its new uses. There has been traces of silicium, which, in conjunction with the silver, could open up the hypothesis of a technological implementation of a living thing, because silicium forms an important part of different living things. Silicium helps the equilibrium of the mineralization of the bones, and it has an important role in the texture of the skin and the formation of cells and the metabolism. Second, theory of technological development. 1,000 years ago, there was vestiges of silver, native silver, and it was almost impossible to find silver with that high pureness. And it is very, very, very hard to find gold parts of that pureness of that age. And it's usually found in alloys of copper and gold. But in this case, we do not have these metals. It's basically pure silver, which opens up the theory of technological development, because the fact that there are these very peculiar characteristics in these vestiges is not something very common in the planet. And maybe the silver also had another use, not just in like human use, like technological or any other kind of use of that sort. There's also chloride of silver, and this would speak of that this is really not something terrestrial or human that contains it, because that would cause a very strong intoxication. The silver is not something that has anti-oxidating properties like the titanium. Silver is a metal that when produces chlorides, it produces oxides, and it cannot remain inside the organism from Earth, because it would have from Earth. Also, silver is a very, very powerful electrical conductor, and it has been discovered that it's the best natural conductor that exists. Electrical conductive metal.
Well, I think that it didn't come out there, but the level of purity of this silver is 99%, which is basically unknown in nature, and as such it should have been made or fabricated by intelligent beings. Now we will go on with the Dr. Edgar Martín Hernandez from the ICA University, who will speak to us about one of the bodies, which we will in one moment to present, which is the body of Maria. Well, good night to everybody. I want to thank the Deputy Sergio Gutiérrez Luna because of this invitation. The one who speaks to you is a member of the ICA University research team. I have some slides, if you can please present them. I must say that the reason I come from is a region where where multiple cultures where we even had the Nazca, which made cranial perforations, which is where the Nazca culture came with the lines of Nazca, with their extremely interesting architectural features. We found prehistoric creatures. We've even recently found an exemplar of a whale called Perucetus colossus. This whale is considered the biggest whale that has ever existed in this planet. Next slide, please. So I'll start first with one of the pseudoscientists' argument that these bodies are made, that these feet were fabricated when you remove a feet or a finger, then it shows. You can see in these holes. Any anatomical expert, any radiologist is able to see these holes. We've done some examples. We've done some samples with feet, with hands, and yet we found the same results. There's a hand, there's a feet with all their body, with all their bones. Then we've subtracted the first and the fifth bone, and we can see like an almost ladder-like thing. And the arrows point to where the bones are missing. Next one, please. We see another hand, and we see when we subtract these fingers, they leave a mark. We can see their steps that are missing. This is why it's impossible to do this procedure and show that they are pterodactyls. Now, I'm going to take into account, I'm going to show you the exam that we have made upon the cranium of Maria. This specimen has two parts. Her cranium is divided into two, which is the face and the cranium. We have measured the volume of these two parts. We found differences in an average human adult. We can see that the likelihood is 1:1. For this, we've done the same formulas that any kind of academic knows. However, in this calculum of diameter and longitude and all of that, we've found that it has. We've calculated that these dimensions, which we've done using craniometry, we've used craniometric points. But as you can see in this image, the image has two dimensions, which are in the green lines, which are dimensions. We can see the longitude, we can see how it goes from the base of the cranium to the top. And as for the face, we can see a dimension that goes from front to back, and one that goes from top to bottom, that goes from the jaw to the base. We have other two dimensions. We would need a third one to be able to properly measure. However, we can see the biparital cranium, and this is how we can see that these calculus that we have made they have this formula. It has helped us determine that this cranium of Maria is like across 1,900 cubic centimeters. The same way, we have now a third dimension. Now we have a volume of 1,575.79 cubic centimeters. Now, comparing these dimensions, we can see that in the case of the desiccated body of Maria, the proportion of the face and the cranium is 1 to 1.3. In the human, in an average, it's male human, it's 1 to 1. The difference, like of around 30% cubic centimeters. There's around 30% of 30% more of brain mass in cubic centimeters. I'm not saying it. I'm not just saying it. Here's the evidence. Next slide. Now we can also see that this specimen, Maria, has a strong positioning of the jaw because it was very, very in the front. We have also calculated that, we have seen to the front, that these angles, this angle is of 108.4 degrees. When in a normal human, it's not that. It's just 82 degrees. We can see that this is an extremely reclined angle. They had a protrusion, a maxillar protrusion. This is not very frequent in humans. It's very rare. It means that the entire maxillar was very projected to the front. In the same way, in our jawline, we have a very projected jawline that ends in an almost B. In a normal human, it's 80 degrees. However, here it's 90.4 degrees. It's extremely high. Maria had a very marked jaw protrusion. It's a very rare find in a human. But here we can see now is that she had a big maxillar protrusion and a big jaw protrusion. If finding one or the other was rare, finding both at the same time is just so much more rare. This is not normal in a human. In this image, we can see too that she had this projection. This is a 3D reconstruction. Please, next slide. However, we can also detect that she had a very extreme ocular protrusion. She had her ocular globes were protruding to the front. We can also notice that these ocular globes were projected in the front, at the front of this line. If this is made of like 95% of liquids, and it's a desiccated body, then this ocular globe must have been very compressed. We assume that the facial image of Maria could have been like the one we show in the image. This image shows the normal location of an ocular globe inside this line. We've also made a characterization of the spinal. At the level of the spine, we can at the thorax level, we found a T2, a T7, a T11, 12. We found these ribs. We've also found that we have found one less vertebrae. We have 4. However, this is not a normal thing for humans. We have a lot of different features to Maria. Next, please. We've also made an analysis about the ovulodental region. We found very interesting stuff. Here you can see that the first odontogram made of Maria. She had 32 teeth like any human. However, she lost around she lost six teeth, and she still had remnant radicular teeth, 4. She had lost a lot of her frontal teeth. They were missing. We also observed that she had a strong teeth decay. We can see in the jaw zone the loss of 3 dental pieces. However, we can still see some homogeny in the bone residue. Here the question was, who did it? How did they do it? Why did they do it? And with which tools? We've done some calculations about the age of Maria using some. According to this system of Broadwell, she had around 33 to 45 years. We've also did through a coronal suture through this system. We've also estimated that her age was around 35 to 40 years old. Now, at the feet level, we can see the bones that make up the torso. We can see a perfect harmony with the bones from the metatarsus. In the first images we showed, we saw that if you extract the bones from the feet, they leave holes, they leave protuberances. And yet here we see a perfect anatomical harmony. And same at the level of the feet, we have 4 phalanges, and this is not normal in a human. Now, something a lot more strange is the way of the calcaneum bone. We have a strong back prominence which helps us to stay upright and even incline a little bit backwards. However, Maria's bone, you can see that she did not have the protuberance. It was completely circular. It makes us think that Maria could not stay upright as we could. She probably inclined to the front. However, we don't have a lot of time to speak about these chest implants, but we all know that they have osmium. They have already said that. So please, next one. To finish this presentation, I'm going to put this phrase, which is, before an extraordinary hypothesis, we need extraordinary evidence too. And so we, as a Richard team, we do believe we have them. This is a stone. This is a stone carved that exists in Menú. It exists in the Wano Museum. We see an image crossing of a human hand and a pterodactyl hand.
Experts, please, just said all the differences. There's a lot of similitudes with human beings, a lot of differences. Yes, exactly. There's a lot of differences, and we can think that Maria is a hybrid, and that this specimen has characteristics from one species and from another one. This is a hybrid, technically. Their bones were very robust. Yes, very robust. For example, there's a lot of differences that I could not mention. For example, at the arm level, there was a separation of 21 millimeters between the radius and the cubit, which is not usual in humans. This looks more like a gorilla arm, and we've made anatomical comparisons, and it looks like a gorilla. How can we explain a hybrid being in the past? Because it's thousands of years old. Yes, precisely. It's something that's very inexplicable to today, because there's something that's very inexplicable to this date. Thank you a lot. Well,
Vamos con
we continue with
Zúñiga,
Irwin Zúñiga,
por favor,
please,
también de la Universidad de Ica.
also from the Ica University.
Buenas noches con todos los presentes.
Good evening, everyone. I also want to thank everyone to have invited me and for me to being able to take part of the preliminary studies that we've done up to the date. Now, in the screen, I don't want to be repetitive, and also time is upon us. I really want to talk about the procedures of the how we take samples from the specimens. As they have already said, in the university we have some specimens, this is Albert, where we took some samples from 3 parts of the body, from the head, from the thorax, and from extremities. To later we make a correlation to see if they were really manufactured bodies or not. Next. During the process, we used some materials and equipment, like here we're using some implant motor that is designed to work in bones, not in teeth, not in stone, just in bones, to make surgery in bones. We aided on that to take tissue in block, just like an epithelial tissue or bone tissue. Next, from the 3 regions that I mentioned, during that procedure, we got the surprise that getting a block out of the thorax, that would be like a segment of the abdominal thorax, because it's joint, we found that the species looked some kind of organ that had a position, that had the position, texture, and color of a liver. It could be a liver, and we were surprised to find it in a pretty good state of conservation, taking into account that this is a desiccated specimen from over 1,000 years ago. Next. I also want to say that, well, we saw microscopically one of the finger bones that had a fracture to see the composition of the finger. And if we can see the image on the left, we can see that they have really, really small pieces. And imagine the fingers, they're really small and they're very delicate, and it was fractured. But we can see in the image at the right the composition that it has. It has an involuture that would be the epithelial tissue or the muscular tissue that is signaled in the yellow arrow that surrounds the bone, that has the structure of a long bone, like the blue arrow signals, and the red arrow signals to the bone marrow, which is the center part of the bone. Next, this also indicates that these are biological specimens, and we also took some samples from the other specimen, which is called Josefina. It has the same similarities, but it has a particularity because, as I have said before, this specimen had some strange objects in the belly that looked like eggs. Next. So we took the samples to send them to the National University of Engineering for them to be analyzed. Next, we're going to go a little bit faster. So we took from 3 parts, from the head, from the thorax, and from the extremities. Next, and next, here. The oppositor said that these were stones that were put in there in the specimens to make them look like they were eggs. So we decided to use the same equipment and devices that was designed only to be worked in bones, not in teeth or stone, but and we could make holes, one of the eggs and another one of the eggs with some resistance, but we could do it. In the video we can see that we could make the hole, that egg, about 50 millimeters. The egg a little bit more in the upper part and in the left part of the specimen. We also did the perforation, and we noticed that one did not offer so much resistance. That meant that in the same specimen it had 3 objects that we could say that they're eggs that had different densities. This was also sent to the National Engineering University for its evaluation. Next, this specimen. Well, here we can see a 3D reconstruction so that you can see better how these eggs are within the specimen. We took samples from 2 of these eggs, and you can also see here the distinct density that these eggs have, the different densities that they have amongst themselves, because they are in different states of development. Next one. Another particularity of this specimen is that it has a metallic plate. They have already made the studies. It was also sent to the engineering university. Next. Next, there. This is a tomography that could not be seen to have the ubication of the localization of the chest. Now, the cuts that were made in different directions, where we can see that this plate is not dense, is not compact. It has a structure. It has a hollow structure in the center, which is very interesting. That over 1,000 years old, they could make this kind of plates. Now, the experts, that are the metallurgic experts in the university, they were really surprised about a lot of things. And they will probably have the occasion with their own authority to explain it better, because I'm just mentioning it. What really woke my interest is that the sample of this metal plate in this central part, at the moment of taking off, as we can see in the left side image, signaled with a red arrow. It's a space that left when we took off the plate, and in the other with blue arrows, we can see that the bone tissues were attached to this plate. This makes me suppose that there's some kind of biointegration, which means that nowadays, with our technological development and medicine, we can incorporate non-biological elements and inorganic elements within a living organism, and we can make it to integrate, like the teeth implant to repair or to replace a tooth. But this is done through another discipline, and it doesn't attach to the bone from one day to the next. It takes some months, and they fuse to this metallic structure, but to a cellular level, which this process is called osseointegration or bone integration. The green arrows signal the bone that is attached to that metallic structure that should be a teeth implant that is made of titanium, and it has been extracted. This metal has been extracted from the living organism, and it has been taken from with parts of bone. We can see that there's a lot of bone, like soft bone, and we can see that the other 2 inferior green arrows, you can see bones, harder bones that have been fused to the bone, to that metal. This is in human examples with teeth implants. This is what happens, and the same happens to this osmium plate. So that means that these specimens were alive, and in the time that the plate was put into them, and that an integration process and a fusing process took place when they were still alive, so that the plate fused to the bone. Thanks a lot. This is what I can talk to you about until now.
Irving, this analysis, do they prove that this metal was put there by a very advanced technology, by someone who knew what they were doing?
As I said, recently in this season, for this millennia, we can do that. We put them with different ends to repair, or even in other countries they're putting chips And for that, in that time that we're talking about more than 1,000 years ago, it had to be a species that firstly, it had to be alive for that fusing process to take place. Because it's not attached. And the other one is that these beings had to have superior intelligence for that to work.
The osmium is toxic. It generates irritation if one breathes it in. We bleed by the nose. It affects our lungs. How can you put osmium in that area?
Metallurgically, I really can't give you my opinion. Metallurgical engineers will give that opinion. But what I know is that there's a lot of metal structures that with the treatment, with modern technologies, we can avoid that stuff. Like with copper, we're using copper as antibacterial.
Is there any doubt about the authenticity of these bodies, about their legitimacy, that they were organic beings?
About the authenticity, until now, the research team, all of the trials that we've done, they reaffirm that these are authentic beings. There is doubts about a lot of things, like these, what we're finding, the new findings that we need more research to come to a conclusion. And we're making more studies, and according to our limitations, because we're very conscious, we really know that Peru, as a third world country, we don't really have the technology to make further research. But when we do more research, we found more stuff that they keep surprising us. And I am really surprised by the expositions of a lot of the doctors that have passed before me, that I am just meeting in this forum. And I'm really surprised from a scientific standpoint from their studies. I'm really surprised. And I'm learning every day more about this. Like, we haven't spoken about this before, because there are doctors from other countries, and they have studied all of this by their own. For example, what you showed about another metal that they found that was mostly silver, that according to the video is toxic. So every day we are finding more surprising stuff, and obviously this requires a more thorough research, and that's why Dr. Roger has done the invitation to all the institutions of the world to take part of this research, and we can make more thorough investigations.
Thanks a lot, Doctor. Well, I don't know if we're already connected with ICA in Peru. Are we connected? Okay, we're connected. Okay, let's go with the reporter Joyce Mantilla. Thanks a lot, Jaime. Good night to everybody, to all the audience at the Mexican Parliament, to the Deputy Sergio Gutiérrez Lure, to you, Jaime, to the entire team at Tercer Milenio that have made possible this audience. Thanks a lot for this invitation. I am transmitting from ICA, from the San Luis Gonzaga University, this place where the so-called NASCAR mummies, these desiccated bodies, are being kept. And here with me is the head of the university, the Dr. Jorge Moreno, who I will welcome here. Hello, Doctor. Good night. Good night. Good night to everybody. I'm going to greet all of the people over there, the very good Deputy Sergio Gutiérrez Luna, and the investigator Jaime Maussan, and the entire scientific community that may be listening to us. What did you think about after this whole process was made null by the Ministry of Culture? All these obstacles in our place. Now that the world knows about this, all these results that were shown, what comes after? I think that the next step is that let us to finally research, to finally look into this, that we may have the freedom to continue our research that we had already started some time ago, but that was but that we may not suffer persecution, and that our efforts are recognized. And because the public ministry may have the certainty that this is an anomalous situation. I think that this institution needs access to be available to have real investigation. These are not human beings. This didn't belong to the group of humans who belong to it. So now the doors are open so that investigators from other universities may come to this university. The doors are open. The doors are open. We have our doors are open. We welcome anyone, any other. And we hope they may all come to investigate. Thanks a lot, Doctor. Now, we also have here, on behalf of our head of university, there's also other universities of Peru that are also interested to be able to have this kind of. This is the Dr. Maruska Malpartida. She's a criminalistic expert. Good night.
Very good evening, Flores. Thank you very much for your invitation. I thank God for being able to be here. I also thank the Deputy Sergio Gutierrez Luna for the invitation. And well, I'm gonna... Yes, so she made a very exhaustive analysis in this night that is shining to the eyes of the world. And now we're going to go to one of the most impressive studies. That is, she's also head of the university in Cusco. Thank you very much, Joyce. I will do it very briefly. It's very ample, but this is just a little part of everything that we've been able to see. In Maria's case, the most important things that we have found are mainly at the maxillofacial level. Here I'm going to show in screen a sagittal cut. We can clearly observe a normal cortex in a human being. It's very proportional, symmetric, singularity that we can see in Maria. And something that is also very interesting in the sagittal cortex is the widthness is so much thicker. It's like 2 or 3 times thicker. It's so much thicker. This in a human, like a human that would have 2 meters 20, would have a skull that thick. As a standard, no, it's an element to have into account. In the morphology, the form of the skull that has Maria, and Maria has, if we put the theory of different things that we have used to do different forms, it's pretty leveled, so it's pretty close to a natural state. So it was not modified culturally nor modified in any case. No, because of the irregularity of the skull. There's no entrances. There's no entries. So it's a very thin entrance. Here, for example, another thing that is very interesting is the shape and the size of the orbits. It's very marked in the case of Maria. In this image, where it's the orbits, we can observe the size in 44 millimeters, which is 35 millimeters is the average. In a big human head, this is way too much for a human. So for the archaeologists and professionals of the scientific community that say that these eyes have been ampled with some tools, well, we can see that there is a symmetry that is very proportional and uniform across the whole contour, and there is no place for there to have been any kind of modification. So you coincide with Professor Hernandez. Yes, correctly. This image and the other images radiographically, X-rays, they don't show any kind of irregularity or structural alterations that would show signs of manipulation. Okay, next. This is interesting. Here, we're going to talk rapidly about the mouth and the teeth. We've also, Dr. Hernandez has also talked about this. We have very prominent decay, especially in the part, in the superior part, in the part of that is in the top. It has very traumatic injuries. So this decayed body had some kind of habit or used this anterior part for as a tool, but with very tough things. So it's very it's very decayed and very. So it's for the amount of food that it ingested. We would think that they would have like about 4 to 5 food ingestion periods a day, and very, very hard ones. Especially if we can see that there is a very prominent friction in the teeth, so we can conclude that they have used the teeth as a tool. We can also observe the biprotrusion, the maxillar biprotrusion, because these both maxillars are protruding towards the front. That are part of the development of regarding the habit, because they have an anterior chewing. Now, now we also did Maria an odontogram, so they studied their teeth. And we, according with the blue marks are the pieces that she has lost. In life, she has had her whole 32 dental pieces. She has very visible losses in the whole dental context. There's also something that catches our attention, and it's the loss at the level of the jaw, the posterior pieces and the other ones. Here we can also see something very marked. Firstly, we can see the marks of friction that is very continuous. This friction is very marked, but here in the jaw part, we can see that there have been the losses of a lot of molars. What does this mean? Probably Maria had a dentist. So we are in front of two professionals of two different universities of Peru that are coming to the same conclusion. It's very probable that Maria had some kind of intervention from somebody else, which would be some kind of dentist of the time, because the borders are very uniform and very well done. It's there's a lot of fine scars. So any kind of scientists from Japan or Russia or any other part of the world, would they come to a similar conclusion from those that you have come here? Yes.
Yeah.
That give us a configuration about the characterization of sex in the cranium. This is what the anthropologists use to define characteristics. Perfect, in the school. The first two images that we see correspond to the feminine, and the last two correspond to a masculine. In the first images, if we make the comparison to Maria's skull, in the part of the protuberance, we can see here that the development is almost imperceptible, and if I wanted to give a zoom, it would be like an intermediate point between feminine and masculine. Now, in another context, we can also see the development of the mastoid process, which is very wide and big. So without the human considerations, so we can see that the orbits. This is on top this is on top of the eyes. It does not correspond to anything of human. It's very plain. It's very marked. There is a development which I have put a point, which is the point 4. From my point of view, and the public certainly coincides that it doesn't fit any kind of these morphological characteristics. It's very robust. Here, she also has a more masculine characteristics. Now, talking about the hands and the teeth, I will probably not be able to say this because there's more professionals, but the hands of Maria, they're very long. There doesn't exist apparently any kind of manipulation. At the level of the feet, there's an X-ray from one of Maria's feet, and we can say uniformity. Like in the other side, if we wanted to mutilate a normal foot, there would be a loss of this bone, and there would be a protrusion of this particular bone, which is marked in red. And we can see that it is in Maria, it's perfectly uniform, and it attaches perfectly. There is no manipulation at all. Another detail is the part about at the end of the fingers. We see some marks, pretty big marks that we usually do not find in a human body. Within the conclusions, there is no morphological alteration in the orbits. They're all regular. The orbits measure 40% more than the standard. There is no mutilation. There is no any signs of mutilations with the hands or the feet. The hands are very regular. There's no alterations. This mummy has a lot of masculine characteristics because of the protuberances and its traits. Like it even goes beyond the masculine standards. It's very robust. Now, something else. How do you feel about taking part in this research? We have a lot of material. This is just the beginning, and we have a lot more of trials that and a lot of results that unfortunately we will not be able to share because of time. Now, I want to thank you very much to Dr. Anosta, and also to inform the public that in the previous audience, a lot of public media used the version of a forensic archaeologist that said that the culture ministry or that the medicine department of the public ministry determined that the desiccated bodies were fake. They are not based in any report. It's just the words of that sir. And thanks to the intervention of other people, because they're very interested in this case, we have found this documented. We've gotten hands in a document that is going to be signed by Mr. Estrada. And we've just made a written report, and the images can see a head, some fragmented articulations, and what could be a brain mass. These documents have been signed by Mr. Estrada, and this has been enabled by the law of transparency. But what he has are the bodies of objects that we're not trying to present just in case. We're presenting with proofs, with consciousness, and with the aid of specialists like the doctor over here. And what we are presenting in the Mexican Congress, and from the side of those who don't research, they hide the evidence, they don't make reports. This is a report that doesn't even have any photos of the samples. There isn't any reports from any laboratory. Like, it just. I want you to know that we also have an institution. We have formed an institution that is called a research institution that will promote this kind of research and promote the free access to the information and promote promote this information and more research of this kind, of this nature. Thank you a lot to all the public that is following us in Mexico, and thank you a lot. Very good night here from the University San Luis Gonzaga.
Thanks a lot, Joyce. Thank you. Now we are just missing two presentators. The biologist Ricardo Rangel, with a truly extraordinary discovery by analyzing the DNA of Maria. Go ahead, Ricardo. He's an expert in biology.
Thank you, Jaime. Very good night, very good afternoon, and nights to everyone. Honorable members of the Chamber of Deputies, honorable members of the Presidium, representatives of the public media, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for your presence. Once again, I am here voluntarily to present my testimony, an interpretation of the analysis of the DNA sequences obtained from an organism identified as 0003, colloquially known as Maria. As documented evidence presented earlier in this public hearing shows, tissue samples were taken from this organism for carbon-14 dating by UNAM, revealing an approximate age of around 700 years. The gold standard for analyzing ancient DNA molecules and their sequencing is next-generation sequencing, or NGS technology. This technology enables parallel amplification of millions of sequences from DNA fragments obtained from ancient samples. It is important to emphasize that generic material obtained from ancient tissues is likely to be degraded and may also be contaminated with DNA from microorganisms or individuals who handle the specimen without the necessary precautions. Therefore, such factors should be considered when interpreting the results. The tissue sample obtained from Maria's hand bone, identified as GGS ancient 0003, underwent DNA isolation protocol and subsequent mass sequencing using an Illumina device. Subsequently, the sequencing results were entered into the public platform of the Sequence Read Archive of the National Center of Biotechnology Information of the U.S. National Library of Medicine, or the NCBI. The results obtained were as follows. From the massive sequencing, 647,789,366 read sequences were obtained, which each read sequence consisting of 150 nucleotides. These read sequences were automatically input into the SRA tool, which produced the following phylogenetic construction that we can observe in the first slide. As you can see, out of the 647 million of sequences, we were able to identify 97.38% of the sequences, and just 2.62% of the read sequences could not be matched with the gene banks known living organisms. In other words, approximately 16,000 read sequences 16 million read sequences did not correspond to known living organisms up to this point. They do not coincide with any known living thing to this point. Of these identified 97.38% of read sequences, a small percentage corresponds to DNA from microorganisms that contaminated the sample or are part of the skin microbiota, accounting 2.13% of the read sequences isolated from the sample, from this specimen, by the name of Maria. Therefore, the remaining 95.25% corresponds to DNA from tissue obtained from the organism in question. As you can see, there is a descending distribution in the identified percentages as we move away from the ancestral lineages in the phylogenetic tree, with the lowest percentage being identified at the genus and species level. In other words, the sequence read archive tool successfully identifies a significant portion of the genetic composition of the organism in question. What is particularly striking and noteworthy in the final result is that 30.22% of the read sequences are identified with the human genome, Homo sapiens, but also include an anomalous taxonomic branch of the Pan genus, accounting for 3.03% of the read sequences obtained from the studied organism. As you can observe in the slide 2, which is a video, to delve further into this result, a corona analysis was performed, which presents the percentage of the read sequences in a pie chart format. In this new diagram, you can observe the representation of the Pan genus percentage, along with two hidden elements hovering, and when hovering the cursor over these hidden elements and double-clicking, we can reveal the additional information. Surprisingly, the newly revealed information corresponds to read sequences identified in two species of apes, specifically Pan troglodytes and Pan paniscus, or the chimpanzee and the bonobo, respectively. Both of these species are sister species. I've been asked for time issues to shorten a little bit my speech, but what I want to conclude is basically that this organism contains sequences of two apes that come from Africa. That is very weird, and it's a proportion that is very similar, approximately a 15% of it. This speaks, or this tells us that this effectively we are talking about a hybrid, and the comparisons exist in the next slide. We can also observe that there are experiments in which there has been we have been able to compare cells that have been hybrided between Homo sapiens and chimpanzee, which have been done in different universities, where these hybrid cells have been obtained in an artificial manner, in a non-natural way. So it's very important that we can have the way to generate evidence that allow us to clarify how these elements have been generated, because it doesn't exist until the moment. How over 1,000 years ago, how hybrid organisms could get here, hybrids from apes that are from Africa, and hybrid with Homo sapiens. And we have a very large percentage of readings that are not identified that could give place to the pterodactyl presence that has been delved into very profoundly. So this is with which I conclude my participation.
So we're speaking about a hybrid being here.
That's right.
Was he made?
Everything points to the fact that, as it was presented in the last slide, the distribution of these read sequences correspond to an artificial hybridization process, just like modern science has been able to replicate, to make hybrid cells between apes and cells.
So we're speaking about two types of monkey.
That's right. Dr. Eugene McCarthy is an expert in hybridization, and he talks about the possibility that these two species could generate hybrids. It's very possible that a hybrid of these two species was used along with that of the human being to make this organism that we've been studying.
So there were four elements: two monkeys, the chimpanzee, the bonobo, then the human being, and then a third element which is unknown.
And a third unknown element that we have seen.
So it's not a simple hybridation.
No, it's a very complex hybridation, and that must have been generated
artificial?
by an artificial.
How do you make this kind of hybrid artificial?
That is something that I think it's the most important thing about this kind of meetings, to invite, to motivate all the researchers. This is what should unite us and not the war. This kind of questions, because we have a challenge, a very important challenge to solve.
What you're revealing is transcendental.
It's very important, Jaime.
We can see a being that looks like a human, but it's not human, that has a lot of human characteristics, and yet a lot of that don't. That's tridactyl, the fingers are enormous, the fingertips are different, they have monkey bones.
Yes, that's right. Actually, as we have just heard also, the measures could look like a masculine genre. But we should make comparisons between these.
So it's not Maria, it's Mario?
It could be a possibility.
I think this is a very important discovery. We have a hybrid being. We have other beings that are apparently more advanced than we are, that have more capacity than we have, that are shorter than us. We are in the face of something extraordinary.
That's right, and why I reiterate to the scientific community to not criticize without having studied all these elements. I think it's very important that we have the possibility and the open mind to be able to make a more thorough research.
Thank you, Dr. Ricardo.
Thank you.
Well, now, to close, so we had a bit of advancing. We're going to present this new species, this being that they sent me a video. I went there, I could obtain it, to deliver it to the ICA University. This was the only... Oh, Daniel Mendoza. Oh, I'm sorry. We obtained this being to deliver it to the ICA University, otherwise it could have been lost. And I think that, truthfully, the first time I saw this being, it seemed too much, even to me. I mean, even after presenting these other two beings to me and that we've generated such controversy, I thought when we present this one, it's going to be an even bigger polemic, because its characteristics are even stranger than the ones we've shown before. So we're speaking about a possible third species here. We've decided to take it then to the Dr. Zúñiga, to an X-ray, to an X-ray with Dr. Mendoza. And so I'm going to ask Dr. Mendoza to please explain to us the results of these X-rays. Please go ahead, Dr. Mendoza. Mr. Sergio Gutiérrez Luna, Deputy, Federal Deputy, distinguished and honorable members of the Congress, Mr. Jaime Muzan, distinguished audience, during the middle of the pandemic, I was solicited to interpret within my limitations, take X-rays from these unknown specimens. I took and tried to interpret, and we can show the first slide. Please, the first images. Well, this is practically the last, the one that Dr. Maussan is saying. This is an unknown specimen. that has a head, a small head, a cervical column, a small cervical column, its spine, its cervico-dorsal spine, and its pelvis, and it has some strange cavities. It has some weird appendix. They look like fins, and indubitably, these large bones present at the center some correspond to an extremely strange bone marrow. You know that the bone marrow is. We can show that these red globbles, this was a biological being that was alive. With all certainty, I can say that. On the other hand, these extremities have joints, and I can see from here that they have 3 fingers. They are tridactyl. This is the last specimen that they took to my study. You can see it here. It's a strange, it's a biological being. It was alive. You can distinguish by the large bones, by the central part, by the medullary part. You can see all these well-defined bones. And this weird body that was taken by the tomography, that they look like eggs, but just seeing the radiography, I can say that there's some strange radio-pack beings. They look ovoid, but I can define them. And that's it. I mean, we can change the next slide to start another thing. This is a specimen that they took to me, and the one I was examining, the one I took radiographies from. I'm going to stay at the radiography that I took, at the X-rays that I took, because the rest of the scientists here have already tackled the morphological subjects. Can you change to the next slide, please? This is the title of the thing I bring to your consideration. These are the radiological studies, conventional, of unknown specimens desiccated from the south of Peru. That's my charge. I am a radiologist, medic from the University of San Luis Gonzaga at Ica. Next slide, please. Now we can see here a panoramic view of a specimen. This is the X-ray of Luisa, named that way by her discoverers. We can see the head, the thorax. We can see the way that everything. We can see this block of concrete, this shoulder, this bone, this hip. In this part, we always take front and lateral X-rays. You can see the 2 views. From here, we can only see that it's a small cranium. It's elongated, and that cranium is divided in 2 fundamental parts. The vault and the cranium base. The bolt, you can see that it's formed by the two tables. You can see this radiolucent image. Just seeing the cranium, we can say that this specimen had corresponded to a biological being. Can you please go on to the next? Thank you. Now you can see this. You can see the head, the bolt and the base. Between the bolt, you can see the external and the internal table. And the base, you can divide it between the lower floor, the middle floor, and the upper floor. The thing that calls my attention, though, is that in the lower floor, where there normally is the Turkish seat, there is nothing. However, in the maxillofacial axis, there exists a prominence in an almost beak-like way, and a cavity oropharyngeal. Below this bolt, we can insinuate these protrusions from the brain. We can now pass on to the next. These vertebrae are very well defined. They are sustained by the intervertebrate spaces that correspond to the vertebrate discs. In the thorax concrete, we can see the ribs that are horizontalized, that part from the column, and all of this looks like a toner, because the ribs are still sized from up to the middle part. In the upper part, in the chest, we can see this weird metallic artifact, these discs joined by these. In the shoulder, we can see the scapula. We can see the collarbone. In the humerus, we can watch that the arrow is well defined. We continue with the elbow, and then comes into the radium, and we don't see any cubic. There's just bone. We pass on to the next element, please. The hands, we can see they have 3 fingers, only 3 fingers. They're quite well consolidated. It has 3 fingers. If you'll allow me the time, just some minutes. In the lower members, we can see just 1 bone. That the homologous corresponds to the tibia, but there's nothing more. We can see 3 fingers again. Next slide, please. In conclusion, in this specimen, in these lower and upper elements, we can see that it was a biological being. This is Albert. It has the same characteristics in the system as Luisa. We can also say that this corresponded to a living being, a biological being. Please, next slide. This is Albert's head. It's the base, it's the neck. Please, next slide. It also has a thorax segment. We can also see that it's similar to the last one. Next slide, please. It also has 3 fingers. Next slide, please. It also has 3 toes. And it has extremely long fingers. Next slide, please.
Este es otro elemento.
This is another
Se llama
specimen. This is Victoria.
Decapitada.
She is
De
beheaded.
huesos largos, también ustedes
She has
pueden
extremely long
ver
bones. Well, you can
con
also see
precisión
it.
que tiene médula, o sea,
It
ha sido un
has.
ser vivo.
It was a living
Otro
being.
dispositivo.
Next slide, please.
Este es el espécimen que
You
han
can see this
bautizado como
specimen
María,
named Maria
que ya han hablado de ella.
that you've
Tiene
already
su cabeza
spoken
grande,
about her. She has extremely big head,
parte de su cuello
part of her neck,
y sus extremidades superiores,
and
tres
her
dedos.
longer
En la
extremities,
columna,
and
el
finish
otro-
at the
el otro-
column.
el otro diapositivo, por
Next
favor.
slide, please.
Hay unos
We can also see
columna dorsal,
this
en
in the column.
D4,
We can see
D7 y
D4,
L1
D7,
hay
and D1.
lesiones.
We can
O
see
sea que
see
nosotros
injuries.
podemos
We can
presumir
infer
que este espécimen
that
ha
this
tenido
specimen
enfermedades,
had
enfermedades probablemente
had
inflamatorias.
had inflammatory
Y dentro
disease,
de las enfermedades
and within
inflamatorias,
these inflammatory
las que
diseases,
vemos actualmente
the one we
en la
see
vida moderna
the
es la
most in
tuberculosis.
modern life is tuberculosis.
El otro diapositivo.
Next slide, please.
Sus pies,
Her toes,
tres
her
metatarsianos
feet, her
y
3
tres
toes,
dedos, y cada dedo con
and each
tres falanges.
toe has 3 phalanges.
Ahí entre la articulación
You
de
can
los
see the
tarsofalángicos
joints.
hay unas lesiones
We can see the injuries,
radiolúcidas, al
these
parecer,
radiolucent injuries,
consecuencias de
probably a
procesos
consequence of
inflamatorios
inflammatory problems.
Otro diapositivo, para terminar.
Next slide, please.
Para
To
terminar,
finish,
quiero mostrarles
I want to
esta
show you these
imagen.
X-rays.
Moderna,
This-
en el tiempo moderno,
This
en
patient from
la
modern
década del
times,
70, 80,
about
me llevaron al
70,
servicio de
80,
radiología cuando
they
yo
took
trabajaba
me
en un hospital
when to this
a una
service,
señora
this X-ray
que
service
tenía
when I
más o
was
menos 40 años,
a lady that had at least
fue a
40
una
years,
consulta externa,
went to an
y
external
el
consult,
médico que la observó
and
estaba
the
tejiendo
medic
y tenía
that was
solamente tres
observing
dedos.
them,
Me la
observing
llevó a
her,
rayos X, yo le
took
tomé
her,
las
and she only had
radiografías,
3
y
fingers.
ahí está
And I
la
took
radiografía.
her
Es una
X-rays, and we can
paciente
compare
que tiene tres dedos
this
nada más,
woman, this
y que el
40-year-old
carpo,
woman,
los huesos del carpo están consolidados,
X-rays,
pero sí
and
tenía
compare it to
el
these
cúbito y
beings.
el radio.
And she, however, she had the radius
una
and the
radiografía
cubit and the cubit.
Moderno.
This is a new, this is
Tomada en
a
la década del
modern
70, 80 más o menos.
X-ray taken in the 70s or
Muchas
80s.
gracias.
Thanks, everybody.
También concluye de la
We also
autenticidad de los
conclude
cuerpos,
the
no hay duda
authenticity
alguna.
of the bodies. There is no doubt.
No, no,
a mi
it's
parecer son
to my,
naturales.
to my, to my
Respecto al
look.
nuevo
They look
cuerpo,
natural to me.
¿Qué nos puede decir?
About
Al último cuerpo
the
que analizó,
the last body, what can you say about it?
It also seems natural to me.
también natural. Y también tiene
It's also
cuerpo,
natural.
pero es muy extraño.
But it's very weird. It has,
No tiene pulmones
it doesn't have lungs,
y tiene solo una columna
and it
vertebral.
just has one
Es
spinal
un
cord.
espécimen desconocido.
It's an unknown specimen.
Bueno, aquí en la Tierra hay salamandras
Well,
que son
here on
apulmonadas
Earth,
y
there
no
are
tienen
salamanders
costillas
that don't
también, ¿no?
have lungs and they
Sería
have
algo
ribs.
similar.
Would it be something
Algo
similar?
Probably.
diferente a los demás.
Probably
Estamos
the rest
hablando
is.
de una nueva
We're talking
especie,
about a
entonces.
new species then.
Probablemente.
Most likely.
Bueno, muchísimas
Right.
gracias, maestro.
Thank you very much.
Gracias, señor Maussan. A continuación,
Thank you, Mr. Maussan.
diputado
Next, the deputy
dará las conclusiones.
will
Por
give
favor,
the
diputado
conclusions,
Gutiérrez
please.
Luna.
Deputy Gutierrez Luna.
Muchas gracias.
Thank you
A todas
very
y a
much to
todos.
everyone.
Hemos concluido,
We've
creo yo,
concluded,
con
I think,
mucho
with
éxito
a lot of
esta segunda
success,
audiencia
this second
sobre
audience
fenómenos
about
anómalos.
the anomalous
Agradecerle a todos los que
phenomena.
nos acompañaron,
I want to
expositores
thank
de
all the
distintas
opponents
partes del
that
mundo,
accompany
destacadamente
us
de
from
Perú,
various parts of the world,
en el contexto
from
de
Peru,
lo que hemos venido
and from the context that we've been
analizando,
analyzing,
platicando, debatiendo
discussing,
desde
debating since
la primera audiencia
the
pública
first
hace 2
public
meses,
audience 2
y
months ago.
agradecer destacadamente
And
a un hombre que no ha cejado en su empeño
there is a name
por
that,
demostrar
well, we have,
este fenómeno. Jaime Maussan. Yo pido un
well, Jaime
aplauso para
Maussan.
Jaime
I
Maussan.
really
Gracias,
ask
Jaime.
for an applause for Jaime Maussan, who has done everything
Esta es la
for this
casa
to be
del pueblo.
possible.
Aquí
This is the house of the
siempre
people.
serán bienvenidas y
You,
bienvenidos
you will always
todas las
be
ideas,
welcome here,
todas las
all the
propuestas
ideas, all the
para
proposals,
debatirlas, para
for them to be
escucharlas, para estar de
debated,
acuerdo
to be
o no.
heard, to be in agreement or not. That's the nature of the Chamber of Deputies. Thank you a lot to everyone. Good night.